The moment Lena Cross stepped into that ballroom, she became a dead woman walking. Raphael Virelli, the name that made empires tremble, had chosen her. Not his lieutenants, not his associates. A housemaid. Nobody asked why a crime lord would bring invisible help to the city's most powerful wedding. But when Lena locked eyes with the one man who should have been dead, she knew this wasn't protection. This was a trap. And Raphael? He was either her executioner or her only way out. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this tale travels. The invitation arrived on black cardstock with gold embossed lettering, delivered by a man in a suit that cost more than Lena's yearly salary. She'd been scrubbing tile grout in the West Wing bathroom when Marcus, Raphael Virelli's head of security, appeared in the doorway like a shadow given form. "Mr. Virelli wants to see you." 5 words that turned her blood to ice water. Lena had worked in the Virelli estate for 11 months. In that time, she'd perfected the art of invisibility. Eyes down, movements quiet, presence negligible. The house staff knew the rules. Clean what needs cleaning, hear nothing, see less, and for the love of survival, never draw Raphael Virelli's attention. She'd broken the cardinal rule without even knowing it. The walk to Raphael's study felt like a death march. Her canvas sneakers made no sound on the marble floors, but her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Marcus stayed 2 steps behind, close enough that running would be pointless. The estate sprawled around them, all vaulted ceilings, an original artwork that could fund a small nation. Beauty built on bones. She'd heard the stories, everyone had. Raphael Virelli had inherited his father's empire at 23 when the old man died under circumstances the police called suspicious and everyone else called inevitable. In the 7 years since, he'd expanded that empire from the city's east side to half the state. Legitimate businesses fronting illegitimate operations, politicians in pockets, law enforcement on payroll. And now he wanted to see the girl who cleaned his toilets. The study doors were 12 feet of carved mahogany. Marcus knocked twice, then opened them without waiting for a response. "Miss Cross, sir." "Leave us." Raphael's voice carried the kind of authority that didn't require volume. Marcus hesitated, a fraction of a second that spoke volumes about whatever he thought was about to happen, then retreated, closing the doors with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. Lena had never been this close to Raphael Virelli before. She'd seen him, of course, impossible not to in 11 months, but always from a distance, across rooms, through windows, moving through the house like a well-dressed storm system. Up close, he was worse. He sat behind a desk the size of a small car, fingers steepled, dark eyes fixed on her with the intensity of a man who'd learned to read lies in the space between heartbeats. Mid-30s, black hair perfectly cut, olive skin, features that would have been handsome if they weren't so cold. He wore a charcoal suit with surgical precision, no tie, top button undone, just casual enough to remind everyone he didn't need to follow anyone's rules. "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. Lena's legs moved on autopilot. The leather chair exhaled beneath her weight. She gripped the armrest to keep her hands from shaking. "Do you know why you're here, Ms. Cross?" "No, sir." "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." She forced her eyes up, met his gaze, and immediately wished she hadn't. There was something in those dark depths that suggested he could see straight through her skin to the secrets underneath. "Better." He leaned back, studying her like she was a balance sheet with interesting numbers. "How long have you worked for me?" 11 months, sir." "And in that time, have I ever spoken to you?" "No, sir." "Do you know why that is?" Lena's mouth went dry. "Because I'm not important enough to notice." Something flickered in his expression, not quite amusement, but close. "Because you're the only person in this house who doesn't want something from me. The others, they smile, they angle, they position, waiting for opportunities, favors, advancement." He paused. "But you? You clean the bathroom like you're trying to disappear into the grout." She didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. "Saturday night," Raphael continued, "Alessandro Marchetti is getting married. You know who that is?" Everyone knew who Alessandro Marchetti was. The Marchetti family controlled the waterfront, the shipping unions, and enough judges to make prosecution a joke. The wedding would be a who's who of organized crime, a summit disguised as a celebration. "Yes, sir." "I need a date." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Lena's brain stuttered, failed to process, rebooted with error messages. Sir, I'm not asking. Raphael's tone didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I'm telling you, Saturday night, 8 o'clock, you'll accompany me to the Marchetti wedding. But why me? The question escaped before she could stop it. Stupid. Dangerous. You didn't question Raphael Virelli, but instead of anger, he smiled. It was a terrible smile, all edges and calculations. Because everyone will ask that exact question, and while they're asking, they won't be watching what actually matters. He stood, buttoning his jacket with mechanical precision. Maria will handle the details. Dress, hair, everything you need. Don't disappoint me, Ms. Cross. It was a dismissal. Lena stood on legs that felt like water, made it halfway to the door before his voice stopped her. And Lena? First time he'd used her name. Whatever you think you know about me, about this life, forget it. Saturday night, you're not a housemaid. You're mine. Act accordingly. The next 3 days passed in a blur of surreal preparation. Maria Santos, Raphael's personal assistant, descended on Lena with the efficiency of a 5-star general planning an invasion. Arms up, Maria circled her like a predator, taking measurements with brutal precision. When was the last time you bought a dress? I don't really buy dresses. Clearly, Maria made a note on her tablet. Shoe size? 7. 7.5. Your feet will swell in heels. More notes. Have you ever had your hair professionally done? No. Makeup? Just drugstore stuff, sometimes. Maria stopped, really looked at her for the first time. Her expression softened fractionally, from granite to merely concrete. You genuinely have no idea why he chose you, do you? Lena shook her head. Good, keep it that way. Maria resumed her measurements. Here's what you need to know. Saturday night, you smile when spoken to, you stay within 3 feet of Raphael at all times, and you do not, under any circumstances, wander off alone. These people, she paused, choosing words carefully, they're not like your friends from wherever you came from. They're sharks, and you're about to swim in their tank wearing a dress that costs more than your car. I don't have a car. That's not the point. Maria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. Raphael wants to see you, now. Lena's stomach dropped. Did I do something wrong? With Raphael, who knows? Come on. This time, the study doors were already open. Raphael stood at the window overlooking the grounds, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke in rapid Italian. Lena caught maybe 1 word in 10, but the tone was unmistakable. Someone was getting dismantled with surgical precision. He ended the call, turned, noticed her. Closed the door. Maria retreated, leaving Lena alone with him again. Raphael moved to a cabinet, poured 2 fingers of something amber into a crystal glass. Didn't offer her one. Do you have family, Lena? The question caught her off guard. No, sir. Friends? People who would notice if you disappeared? Her heart hammered. Are you planning to make me disappear? I'm planning to keep you alive. He took a sip, watching her over the rim. Which means I need to know what liabilities you bring with you. Jealous ex-boyfriends? Debts? Anyone who might see you on my arm Saturday night and get ideas? There's no one. The truth of it hit harder than it should have. 26 years old, and her entire life could fit in the back seat of a Honda Civic. No family, no real friends, just a series of minimum wage jobs in cities she could barely remember. I keep to myself. I know. Raphael set the glass down. I've had you investigated. Of course he had. Clean record, he continued. No arrests. No debts beyond a manageable amount of student loans. You move every 12 to 18 months. Chicago, Minneapolis, Denver, now here. Always service jobs. Always cash under the table when possible. Almost like you're running from something. Lena's mouth went dry. I'm not. Everyone's running from something, Ms. Cross. The question is whether what you're running from will follow you into my world. He moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker underneath. Gunpowder, maybe, or just the metallic tang of power. So I'll ask you once, and I'll know if you're lying. Is there anyone or anything that poses a threat to you? To me, by extension? The lie formed instinctively. No. But something in her voice must have wavered because Raphael's eyes narrowed. He studied her for a long moment, and Lena felt like an X-ray was stripping her down to the bones. We'll see, he finally said. Dismissed. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth and clear skies, the kind of perfect weather that felt like an omen. Lena spent the morning in a state of barely controlled panic, which transformed into complete dissociation when the dress arrived. It came in a garment bag that probably cost more than her first car would have, if she'd ever owned one. Maria supervised as two assistants she'd never seen before helped Lena into it. The dress was midnight blue, almost black in certain light, silk that moved like water. Off-shoulder cut that showed collarbones she didn't know she had. It fit like it had been grown on her body, which, given the measurements Maria had taken, it basically had been. Jesus, one of the assistants breathed. Maria shot her a look that could have stripped paint. Out! Both of you! They fled. Maria circled Lena slowly, adjusting, examining, calculating. Shoes, she pointed. Lena stepped into heels that added 4 inches and made her feel like she was walking on stilts. Maria steadied her, surprisingly gentle. You'll practice. Walk the length of this room 20 times. Get used to them. 20 times? Would you prefer to fall on your face in front of the Marchetti family? Lena walked. By the 15th lap, she no longer felt like a baby deer on ice. By the 20th, she almost felt human. Hair came next. A stylist appeared. Where Maria kept finding these people, Lena had no idea, and transformed her usual ponytail into something elegant and intentional. Soft waves, pinned in strategic places. A few tendrils left loose to frame her face. Makeup was applied with artistic precision. Not heavy, but deliberate. Her eyes looked bigger. Her cheekbones appeared from nowhere. When they finally let her look in the mirror, Lena barely recognized herself. Don't cry, Maria warned. You'll ruin the makeup, and we don't have time to redo it. Lena blinked hard, forced the emotion down. That stranger in the mirror looked like someone who belonged in Raphael Virelli's world, someone who could walk into a room and be seen. She'd spent her entire adult life trying to be invisible. He's waiting. Maria handed her a small clutch, also new, also expensive. Remember what I told you. Stay close, smile, don't wander. The walk downstairs felt like descending into another world. The marble stairs that she'd scrubbed on hands and knees now felt like a runway. Her reflection caught in the gold-frame mirrors lining the walls. That stranger again, getting more real with each step. Raphael waited in the foyer, checking his watch. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than the dress, tailored so precisely it looked like formal wear armor. His hair was swept back, jaw sharp enough to cut, and when he looked up and saw her on the stairs, something crossed his face too quickly to identify. You'll do, he said. Somehow, coming from him, it felt like a standing ovation. Marcus appeared with the car keys. Everything's ready, sir. Good. Raphael offered Lena his arm, not a request, a command. Shall we? The car was a black Mercedes with windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. Marcus drove. Another security detail followed in a second car. Raphael sat beside her in silence, scrolling through his phone with mechanical precision. Lena watched the city slide past. They drove through neighborhoods she recognized, working-class blocks that looked like the dozen other cities she'd lived in, then crossed into territory that made her breath catch. Old money. Real power. Mansions set back from tree-lined streets, each one a monument to wealth that had names and histories. The Marchetti estate made Raphael's place look modest. Gates that belonged on a medieval castle. A driveway that wound through manicured gardens lit with thousands of white lights. The main house, calling it a house felt like calling the ocean damp, rose against the darkening sky like something from a period drama. Cars lined up ahead of them, disgorging passengers in evening wear that could have funded small countries. Lena watched them move toward the entrance with the ease of people who'd been born into this world, who knew all the unspoken rules. Breathe, Raphael said without looking up from his phone. I am breathing. You're hyperventilating. Control it. She focused on her breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The dress suddenly felt too tight. Their turn came. Marcus pulled up to the entrance. A valet opened Raphael's door. Another appeared at Lena's. She took his offered hand, stepped out into camera flashes, and murmured conversations. Every eye turned toward them. Raphael appeared at her side, offered his arm again. "Smile," he murmured. "You're supposed to be enjoying yourself." Lena's face assembled something approximating pleasure. They moved toward the entrance through a gauntlet of stares and whispers. She caught fragments. "Who is she? Never seen her before. Virelli's date? But I thought—" Raphael's hand covered hers on his arm. To anyone watching, it looked affectionate, but his grip carried a warning: don't run. The entrance hall was 3 stories of marble and gold leaf. A string quartet played something classical and expensive sounding. Waiters circulated with champagne on silver trays. Every surface gleamed. Every person looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. "Raphael." A man approached. Tall, silver-haired, smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I was wondering if you'd show." "Alessandro." Raphael's tone was cordial ice. "Congratulations on your impending imprisonment." The man laughed like Raphael had told a hilarious joke. "Ever the comedian. And who is this lovely creature?" Lena Cross. Raphael's hand tightened fractionally on hers. "My date." Alessandro's eyes traveled over her with the subtlety of a medical examination. "Enchanted. I don't believe I've seen you at any of our gatherings before." "First time," Lena managed. "Well, welcome to the circus." Alessandro's attention shifted back to Raphael. "We should talk later about that thing." "We should." It was an agreement. It was a threat wrapped in formality. Alessandro recognized it, nodded, and moved on to the next arrival. "What thing?" Lena whispered. "Nothing that concerns you." Raphael guided her deeper into the crowd. "Stay close. Smile at people. Let me handle the talking." They moved through the reception like sharks through a coral reef. Raphael stopped every few feet to exchange greetings, veiled insults, and what Lena was starting to recognize as carefully worded threats. She smiled until her face hurt, shook hands with people whose names she immediately forgot, and tried not to think about the fact that everyone in this room had probably killed someone. An hour in, her feet were screaming and her face felt frozen in its smile. Raphael had been pulled into an intense conversation with 3 men near the bar, something about shipping routes and territorial disputes that made no sense to her. She stood slightly behind him, trying to be simultaneously present and invisible. That's when she saw him. Across the room. Near the entrance to what looked like a ballroom, talking to a woman in a red dress. Victor Hale. The world tilted. Lena's champagne glass, she didn't remember accepting it, slipped from her fingers. It hit the marble floor with a crystal crash that turned heads. Raphael's hand was on her elbow instantly. "What's wrong?" She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Victor was here. Victor was alive. Victor was supposed to be— "Lena!" Raphael's voice cut through the panic. "What happened? I need—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The room was spinning. Victor turned at the sound of breaking glass, and for one terrible second, their eyes met across the crowded room. Recognition. His face went white, then red, then something cold and calculated. "Inside. Now." Raphael's tone allowed no argument. He guided her through a side door into a private study, closed it behind them. The noise from the reception cut off like someone had thrown a switch. Lena's legs gave out. She caught herself on a desk, breathing hard. "Talk," Raphael said. "I can't— I thought he was—" "Who is he?" "Victor Hale." The name tasted like poison. "I saw him 3 years ago in Minneapolis. There was a woman and she was begging and he just—" The memory crashed over her, blood on tile. The sound of a skull hitting concrete. Victor's face, calm as a surgeon, as he'd wrapped the body in a tarp. "You witnessed a murder." Not a question. Raphael's voice had gone flat, professional, the voice of a man calculating odds. "I ran," Lena continued, the words spilling out now. "I didn't go to the police. I just ran. Changed cities, changed names. Not legally. I used my middle name, got jobs under the table. I thought if I disappeared, he'd never find me." "And you didn't think to mention this when I asked if anyone posed a threat?" "I thought he was dead." Her voice cracked. "There was a news story 6 months later. Gang shooting. Victor Hale, deceased. I saw his photo. I was free. Raphael was silent for a long moment. Then, you saw a story about someone with the same name, different person. He looked right at me. He knows I'm here. Yes, he does. Raphael pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Which means we have a problem. We? His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something almost human in them. Anger, maybe, or recognition. You're my date, he said, which makes you my responsibility. And if Victor Hale thinks he can use you to get to me, he didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. The door opened. Marcus appeared, face grim. Sir, we have a situation. I'm aware. Where is he? Move to the North Terrace. He's with Vincent Carelli's crew. Raphael cursed in Italian. Of course he is. Carelli's been looking for leverage for months. He turned to Lena. Here's what's going to happen. We're going back out there. You're going to stay within arm's reach of me at all times. Smile. Act natural. We give them nothing. He'll tell people, Lena said, what I saw. He'll try, but right now he's evaluating options, trying to figure out if you're a threat or an opportunity. Raphael's jaw tightened. We need to get ahead of this. How? By making sure everyone knows you're under my protection. Explicitly. He offered his hand. Can you stand? Lena took it, let him pull her upright. Her legs still felt like water, but they held. Good. Raphael adjusted his cufflinks, a strangely normal gesture in an abnormal situation. Remember, you're mine. Act like it. They returned to the reception. The crowd had moved into the ballroom for dinner. Round tables with centerpieces that probably cost more than Lena's annual salary. A head table where the bride and groom would preside. Raphael guided her to a table near the front. Seating charts apparently meant nothing when you were Raphael Virelli. Victor was 3 tables away. He watched them sit. Watched Raphael pull out Lena's chair. Watched him lean in close, whisper something that looked intimate but was actually, don't look at him. Eyes on me. Dinner was surf and turf she couldn't taste. Courses came and went. Raphael made conversation with the people around them, more territorial disputes disguised as small talk, while keeping one hand on the back of her chair. A constant reminder, you're protected. But protection had a price. Lena could feel it in the weight of the stares, the whispered conversations. Raphael Virelli had brought a nobody to the event of the season. Why? What was she to him? What did it mean? The speeches started. Alessandro gave a toast about love and loyalty that made several people laugh knowingly. The bride, young, beautiful, terrified behind her smile, thanked everyone for coming. More champagne flowed. That's when Victor made his move. He approached during the dancing when couples had taken to the floor and the atmosphere had shifted from formal to merely tense. Raphael was deep in conversation with someone about construction permits and bribes. Lena stood beside him, trying to be furniture. Excuse me, Victor's voice, close, too close. Raphael's conversation stopped mid-sentence, but Victor Hale. Victor extended his hand to Raphael, ignoring Lena completely. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Raphael Virelli. The handshake was brief, strategic. I know who you are. And I know who you are, everyone does. Victor's smile was the scalpel. I was hoping we could talk, privately, about a matter of mutual interest. I doubt we have any mutual interests. Oh, I think we do. Victor's eyes flicked to Lena for just a second. It concerns your lovely date. The temperature dropped. Several nearby conversations stuttered to silence. Even the band seemed to play quieter. Raphael's expression didn't change, but Lena felt him shift, a predator recognizing another predator in its territory. My date, Raphael said slowly, is none of your concern. See? That's where you're wrong. Victor's smile widened. Because Ms. Cross and I have history, don't we, Lena? All eyes turned to her. Lena felt like a specimen under glass. I don't know what you're talking about, she managed. No? Victor's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. Minneapolis, 3 years ago. You really don't remember? Raphael's hand found the small of her back, a gesture of possession disguised as comfort. Whatever history you think you have with Ms. Cross is irrelevant. She's here with me. That's all that matters. Respectfully, Mr. Virelli, I disagree. Victor pulled out his phone, swiped through something. See, I've been trying to figure out where I knew her from. Then it hit me. She was the girl from the warehouse, the one who saw. Enough! Raphael's voice could have frozen the sun. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. I'm not selling anything. I'm offering information about a witness to a crime. Victor's smile was pure malice now. A crime that certain people would be very interested to know was witnessed by someone who's now under your protection. The threat hung in the air like smoke. If Victor told the right people that Lena had witnessed a murder, his murder, it would paint a target on her back. But more than that, it would make Raphael look weak, like he'd brought a liability into their world without vetting her properly. Marcus appeared at Raphael's shoulder, silent as death. Raphael's hand on Lena's back tightened fractionally. Then he smiled, a terrible, calculated smile. Victor, is it? Let me be very clear about something. He took a step forward, and despite being roughly the same height, somehow made Victor look small. Lena crosses mine, which means any threat to her is a threat to me. And I don't respond well to threats. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating facts. Facts. Raphael's laugh was ice. Here's a fact. I've been in this business long enough to recognize a shakedown. You want something. Money? Territory? A seat at a table you're not important enough to access on your own? Another step. So you find a girl, spin a story, hope I'll pay to make the problem go away. Victor's smile faltered. It's not a story. Marcus. Raphael didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. Marcus moved, subtle, just a shift in position. But suddenly there were other men nearby, Raphael's men, forming a loose circle around their conversation. You should leave, Raphael said, before you embarrass yourself further. Victor looked around, realized the trap he'd walked into. His face flushed red. This isn't over. Yes, Raphael said quietly. It is. Victor retreated, but not before shooting Lena one last look that promised this was far from finished. The crowd that had gathered to watch the confrontation slowly dispersed, conversations resuming in whispers and glances. Raphael's hand remained on Lena's back as he guided her toward the exit. We're leaving. But the wedding is over. For us. They moved through the ballroom, and this time people parted like water. Raphael Virelli was done with niceties. The car was waiting. Marcus had it running. They slid into the back seat, and before Lena could process what had just happened, they were moving, the Marchetti estate shrinking behind them. Raphael was silent for the first 5 minutes. Then, tell me everything, from the beginning, leave nothing out. So she did. The warehouse job in Minneapolis, working late cleaning offices, the voices she'd heard, Victor and another man arguing, the woman's pleading, the terrible sound of violence, hiding behind a dumpster for 3 hours, certain she'd be found, running to Chicago the next day with everything she owned in a duffel bag. And you never went to the police. And tell them what? That I, a person with no ID, witnessed a crime by someone I couldn't identify? They'd have laughed me out of the station. Or worse, Victor would have found out I was talking. Raphael was quiet, processing. The news story you saw about Victor Hale's death. I thought I was free. Lena's voice cracked. I thought it was over. It was never over. You witnessed a crime against someone with connections. That makes you a permanent liability. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Tony, I need everything you can find on Victor Hale. Minneapolis connection, associates, who he runs with now. And I need to know who the woman was, the one from 3 years ago. He listened. Because someone's trying to leverage me, and I don't like being leveraged. He ended the call, turned to Lena. You're staying at the estate. Marcus will collect your things from wherever you're living now. You don't have to. This isn't a request. His eyes were hard. Victor Hale made you my problem the moment he approached us tonight, which means I need to solve you. Solve me? Figure out what he really wants, because this isn't about a 3-year-old murder. It's about something bigger. Raphael's jaw tightened. And until I know what that is, you're not leaving my sight. The car pulled through the estate gates. Home. Or as close to home as Lena had anymore. Why did you really choose me? She asked. For tonight. Raphael was silent for a long moment. Then, because when I walk through my house, everyone sees the throne, the power, the empire. They see what they want from me, or what they fear. He looked at her, and for just a second, the mask slipped. But you? You saw a man who tips housekeeping staff at Christmas, who says thank you, who leaves notes when something's done well. He paused. I needed someone who saw the man, not the monster. And now I've turned into your biggest liability. No. His hand found hers in the darkness. Now you've become something more complicated. His phone buzzed. He read the message, swore. Tony works fast. What is it? The woman Victor killed in Minneapolis. Her name was Angela Carelli, Vincent Carelli's niece. The name hit Lena like a physical blow. Vincent Carelli, one of the most powerful players at tonight's wedding. The man Victor had been standing with on the terrace. Victor works for Carelli, Raphael continued reading, has for 4 years, which means Carelli knows what Victor did, Lena finished, and he's been protecting him. More than that. Raphael's eyes were dark. Carelli's been using tonight to see if there was any exposure, any witnesses who could resurface, and Victor just confirmed that yes, there is. So Carelli will want me dead. He'll want leverage first. Dead witnesses can't be useful. Raphael's phone rang. He answered. Tony, tell me you have good news. His expression darkened as he listened. How certain are you? Fuck. All right. Lock down the estate. Full security. No one in or out without my direct approval. He ended the call, ran a hand through his hair, the first crack in his composure all night. What? Lena asked. Carelli made 3 calls in the last 20 minutes to people who specialize in making problems disappear. Raphael's eyes met hers. You're the problem. Then give me to him. The words came out before Lena could stop them. I'll disappear, change cities again. He'll never find... Stop. Raphael's hand gripped hers hard enough to hurt. That's not how this works. You're under my protection now, which means Carelli would have to go through me to get to you. And he knows that would start a war he can't win. You'd go to war over a housemaid? I'd go to war over the principal. I don't surrender what's mine. His jaw was set. Besides, Carelli's been looking for an excuse to test me for years. This is just convenient timing. The car stopped. They were home. Marcus opened the door and Raphael stepped out, then offered Lena his hand. Welcome, he said, to the safest cage in the city. The estate transformed overnight from mansion to fortress. Lena woke in a guest room 3 times the size of her old apartment to find armed men stationed outside her door. Through the window, she counted at least a dozen security personnel patrolling the grounds, more than she'd ever seen before. Maria appeared at 7 with coffee and a tablet full of security protocols Lena was expected to memorize. No leaving the main house without Marcus or Raphael. No phone calls to anyone. No internet usage without supervision. The windows in this wing are bulletproof, but stay away from them anyway. Maria rattled off rules like she was reading a grocery list. Breakfast is at 8. Raphael wants to see you after. Is this really necessary? Lena asked, cradling the coffee like a lifeline. Maria's expression softened fractionally. Vincent Carelli once had a man's entire family eliminated because the man testified about a parking violation. A parking violation, Lena. You witnessed his niece's murder. Yes, this is necessary. She left Lena with that cheerful thought in a closet full of clothes that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. Expensive clothes. The kind that screamed money and taste. Jeans that probably cost more than her security deposit, silk blouses, cashmere sweaters in jewel tones. Even the underwear looked like it belonged in a boutique window. Raphael's work, making sure his new problem looked the part. Breakfast was a surreal affair in a dining room designed to seat 20. Lena sat at one end with fruit and toast she couldn't taste. Raphael appeared halfway through, already dressed for business in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a semester of the college she'd dropped out of. Sleep well? He asked, claiming the chair beside her instead of the one at the head of the table. As well as someone can when they've got a target on their back. You'll get used to it. He poured coffee with the ease of someone who'd been living with death threats since birth. We need to talk strategy. Strategy for what? Staying alive? Strategy for neutralizing Carelli before he makes his move. Raphael pulled out his phone, swiped through something. Tony's been digging. The woman Victor killed, Angela Carelli. She wasn't just Vincent's niece. She was handling his books. Money laundering operations, payoffs, the whole infrastructure. Lena set down her fork. So Victor killed someone important. Victor killed someone who knew too much. Angela was skimming. Not much, a few thousand here and there, but enough that Vincent noticed. He sent Victor to scare her straight. Raphael's jaw tightened. Victor went too far. And Vincent covered it up. Had to. If word got out that his own enforcer had killed his niece over pocket change, it would make him look weak. Can't control his people. Can't protect his family. In our world, perception is everything. Raphael met her eyes. But covering up a murder means living with a witness out there somewhere. A loose end. Me. You. For 3 years you were a ghost, untraceable. Not a threat because no one knew you existed. He paused. Then I brought you to the wedding. The weight of it settled over Lena like concrete. I'm sorry. If I'd known... Stop. This isn't your fault. Raphael's hand covered hers briefly. Carelli's been looking for an excuse to move against me for years. Territory disputes, philosophical differences, the usual petty bullshit. You're just convenient timing. So what do? We make you inconvenient. Raphael stood, buttoning his jacket. Tony's tracking down everyone connected to that night in Minneapolis, Victor's partner, the warehouse owner, anyone who might have information. We build a case that makes you more valuable alive than dead. A case for who? The police? Raphael's laugh was bitter. The police work for whoever pays them more. No, we build leverage. Information that guarantees if anything happens to you, Carelli's entire empire comes down with you. Dead man's switch. Exactly. You die, his secrets go public, automatically. No negotiation. Raphael checked his watch. I've got meetings all day. Marcus will stay with you. There's a library on the 2nd floor, a gym in the east wing. Make yourself comfortable. I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Lena, this will get worse before it gets better. Carelli will test our defenses. Make threats. Try to find weaknesses. But I need you to trust that I've survived worse than Vincent Carelli. Why are you doing this? The question escaped before she could stop it. Really doing this? I'm nobody. You could hand me over, make peace with Carelli, and move on with your life. Raphael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more human. My father built his empire on the principle that loyalty flows upward. Everyone underneath serves those above. You protect power, not people. He met her eyes. I built mine on a different principle. You protect what's yours, no matter the cost. The moment I brought you to that wedding, you became mine, and I don't surrender what's mine. He left before she could respond. The day crawled past with excruciating slowness. Marcus shadowed her like a well-dressed ghost as she explored the house, really explored it for the first time. The library Raphael mentioned was actually 3 rooms of floor-to-ceiling books, first editions mixed with paperbacks, fiction beside philosophy. Someone actually read these. The spines showed where. Mr. Varelli's mother, Marcus said when he caught her looking. She was a literature professor before she married into the family. Insisted on building this. Said if her son was going to run an empire, he needed to understand the empires that came before. Is she still alive? Cancer. 10 years ago. Marcus's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Mr. Varelli doesn't talk about her much, but he kept every book exactly where she left them. Lena ran her fingers along the spines. Dante's Inferno next to a dog-eared copy of The Great Gatsby. Machiavelli's The Prince beside Pride and Prejudice. A criminal's education in human nature. Her phone buzzed. Except she didn't have her phone. Marcus had confiscated it that morning. She turned to find him holding out a new device. Secure line. Only 3 numbers programmed in. Mine, Raphael's, and Maria's. If you need anything, call. He handed it over. And before you ask, yes, we're monitoring it. For your safety. Of course you are. Lunch arrived on a tray. Marcus wouldn't let her go to the kitchen, security concerns. and Lena ate in the library, losing herself in a collection of Hemingway short stories. The afternoon bled into evening. Raphael didn't return. She was halfway through For Whom the Bell Tolls when Marcus's phone rang. His expression changed, subtle, but she'd learned to read the security team's micro-expressions. Something was wrong. "Stay here." He moved toward the door. "What's happening?" "Probably nothing. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Raphael or me." He left. Lena locked the door with shaking hands, pressed her ear against the wood. Footsteps. Voices. The sound of cars starting outside. Then silence. 20 minutes passed. 30. Her new phone stayed silent. She tried Raphael's number, straight to voicemail. Marcus, same. Maria, voicemail. The library suddenly felt too big, too exposed. All those windows, bulletproof or not. Lena moved away from them, positioning herself where she could see both doors. The Hemingway novel lay forgotten on the chair. A knock, soft, deliberate. "Miss Cross?" A voice she didn't recognize. "I'm with Mr. Varelli's security. I need you to come with me." Marcus said not to open the door. "There's been a situation. Mr. Varelli's requesting your presence." Lena's heart hammered. "What kind of situation?" "I'm not authorized to discuss it through the door, please, ma'am. We need to move you to a secure location." Every instinct screamed trap. "Give me Marcus's current position." Silence. Then, "East perimeter. But ma'am?" "Tell him to call me. On the secure line, then I'll open the door." More silence. Footsteps retreating. Lena waited, phone clutched in her hand, watching the seconds tick past. The phone rang. Marcus. "Don't open that door," he said without preamble. "We've got an intruder on the grounds, possibly more than one. They're trying to draw you out. The man outside isn't one of ours. Raphael's on his way back, ETA 10 minutes. Stay where you are." The line went dead. Lena stared at the door, heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Someone was on the other side. Someone who knew exactly where she was. The doorknob rattled. Testing. "Miss Cross, I know you're frightened, but we really need to move. Now." Marcus said to wait. "Marcus doesn't have all the information." The voice changed. Harder, more urgent. "There's a bomb threat. We need to evacuate the house." A bomb threat. In a fortress designed to withstand assault. Lena almost laughed at the absurdity. "Then trigger the fire alarm." Silence. She'd called the bluff. The door exploded inward. Not literally, no bomb, no explosion, but the wood splintered as a body hit it. Once. Twice. The lock held, but the frame was giving. Lena ran for the second door, the one leading to the east corridor, but it was locked from the outside. She was trapped. The first door gave way. Two men entered, not in suits but in tactical gear. Professionals. One moved toward her while the other swept the room with mechanical precision. "Miss Cross, we're here to escort you to Mr. Carelli." "Fuck off." The man smiled. "We can do this easy or hard. Your choice." Lena grabbed the nearest weapon, a marble bookend shaped like a lion, and threw it. Her aim was terrible. It sailed past the man's head and shattered a window. But the window breaking triggered something, an alarm that shrieked through the house like a wounded animal. The men exchanged glances. They'd lost the element of surprise. "Hard way, then." The first man moved fast, closing the distance. Lena scrambled backward, knocked over a side table, grabbed a lamp. Useless. He batted it aside and had her arm in a grip that sent pain shooting up to her shoulder. "Don't make this difficult." Gunshots. Close. The sound of windows shattering. Both men froze. Then Marcus came through the broken door like a force of nature. No hesitation, no warning. He put 2 rounds in the first man's chest before the guy could even raise his weapon. The second man shoved Lena forward, using her as a shield, but Marcus adjusted, fired twice more. The man dropped. The sudden silence was deafening. "You hurt?" Marcus asked, already moving toward her. Lena shook her head, couldn't find words. There were 2 dead men on the library floor, blood spreading across the antique rug. Her ears rang from the gunfire. "Good. We need to move." Marcus pulled her toward the door, then stopped. More footsteps. More voices. He shoved her behind a bookshelf. Stay down! More gunfire. Marcus returned it with calm precision. Lena pressed her hands over her ears, squeezed her eyes shut, tried to pretend this wasn't happening. She was supposed to be cleaning bathrooms, filing papers, living invisible, not cowering behind a bookshelf while men died 6 feet away. Clear, Raphael's voice. Lena had never been so happy to hear anyone in her life. She stumbled out from behind the shelf. Raphael was in the doorway, suit jacket gone, shoulder holster visible, a gun in his hand that looked like it had seen recent use. His eyes found her, scanned her for injuries with clinical precision. You're okay? I'm alive. That's not the same thing. It'll have to do. He moved past her, checked the bodies. Carelli's men, professional contractors, not his usual crew. He looked at Marcus. How many more? 3 in the east wing, 2 on the grounds, all neutralized. Raphael's jaw tightened. He sent 7 men into my house. That's not a retrieval. That's a statement. What kind of statement? Lena managed. That he's willing to risk open war to get to you. Raphael holstered his weapon, ran a hand through his hair. Which means we were right. You're not just a witness anymore. You're leverage for something bigger. His phone rang. He looked at the screen and something cold crossed his face. Speak of the devil, he answered. Vincent, to what do I owe the pleasure? Raphael put it on speaker. Vincent Carelli's voice filled the library, smooth, cultured, with an edge like a razor blade wrapped in silk. Raphael, I understand there's been an incident at your home. I hope everyone's all right. 7 of your men are dead. I'd say it could have gone better. My men? I'm afraid you're mistaken. I have no idea what you're talking about. A pause. However, I did hear an interesting story at the wedding about a young woman who witnessed something unfortunate several years ago. A situation that certain parties would prefer remained resolved. If you're calling to threaten me, Vincent, you'll need to be more creative. I've been threatened by better. Not a threat. A negotiation. You have something I need. I'm willing to pay handsomely for it. Raphael's eyes met Lena's. She's not for sale. Everyone's for sale, Raphael. It's just a matter of price. Carelli's voice hardened. I'm offering you a peaceful resolution, territory adjustments in your favor, the waterfront contracts you've been angling for, even a seat on the commission, all for one insignificant girl who means nothing to you. You're right. She means nothing to me. Raphael's gaze never left Lena's face, which is why I'm keeping her, because the moment I give you what you want, I look weak. And I didn't build this empire by looking weak. Pride before profit? How disappointing. I thought you were smarter than your father. My father would have handed her over and congratulated himself on making a deal. I'm not my father. Raphael's voice dropped to something dangerous. And here's what you need to understand, Vincent. That girl is under my protection, which means touching her is touching me. And if you touch me, I burn your world to the ground. Bold words from someone whose house I just walked into. You sent contractors, mercenaries, men who don't know the territory and couldn't find their own asses with both hands. Raphael smiled, though there was nothing warm in it. You want to try again? Send your real soldiers, see what happens. Silence on the line. Then, this isn't over, Raphael. No, it's just beginning. He ended the call, tossed the phone onto a chair. Well, that could have gone better. He's going to come after me again, Lena said. Undoubtedly, but now he knows the cost. Raphael moved to the window, or what was left of it, and looked out at the grounds. 7 men dead, that's money, resources, reputation. He'll think twice before trying again. Or he'll send twice as many next time. Let him. This is my territory, my house, my rules. He turned back to her. But we can't stay on defense forever. We need to go on offense. Meaning what? Meaning we find out what Victor knows. Who else was there that night? What evidence exists? Raphael's eyes were calculating. And then we use it to bury Carelli so deep he'll never see daylight again. Marcus cleared his throat. Sir, we should move Miss Cross to the safe room while we clear the rest of the house. Good idea. Lena, go with Marcus. No. The word surprised even her. No more hiding. If this is about me, I want to be part of solving it. Raphael studied her for a long moment. This isn't a game. Carelli's not going to stop. More men will come. More violence. People will die. People are already dying because of me. Because I saw something I shouldn't have and ran instead of fighting. Lena straightened her spine, forced her voice steady. I'm done running. Something flickered in Raphael's expression, approval maybe, or recognition. All right, you want in? You're in. But that means following orders. No arguments, no hesitation. When I say move, you move. When I say hide, you hide. Understood? Understood. Good. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Tony, I need everything on Victor Hale's movements the night of Angela Carelli's death. I want to know where he went, who he talked to, every person in that warehouse. And I need to know who else Carelli is protecting. He listened. No, not later. Now. We just went to war. I need ammunition. The next hour was organized chaos. Raphael's security team swept the entire estate room by room. Bodies were removed. Where they went, Lena didn't ask. The broken windows were boarded up. A cleaning crew appeared from nowhere to deal with the blood. Lena watched it all from Raphael's study, Marcus a silent sentinel by her side. This was Raphael's world. Violence cleaned up with the efficiency of a corporate merger. Death filed away like paperwork. Raphael appeared and disappeared, phone constantly at his ear, making calls, issuing orders, building whatever strategy he was assembling in that calculating mind of his. Finally, near midnight, he returned to the study and closed the door behind him. He looked exhausted, tie gone, sleeves rolled up, dark circles under his eyes. Talk to me, Lena said. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. Tony found something. The warehouse where Victor killed Angela, it was owned by a shell company, and that shell company is owned by... He paused for effect. Judge Richard Morrison. Lena's brain struggled to make the connection. The Judge Morrison? The one who's running for state attorney general? The same. Turns out Morrison's been in Carelli's pocket for years. Real estate deals, drug trafficking, money laundering, all running through properties Morrison owns on paper. Raphael took a drink. Angela found out. She was going to expose him. So Carelli had her killed to protect Morrison. And Morrison's been protecting Carelli ever since, burying evidence, influencing cases, making sure nothing sticks. Raphael's smile was predatory. But if we can prove Morrison's involvement in Angela's death, his political career is over. And without Morrison's protection, Carelli's empire starts to crumble. How do we prove it? We find evidence, documents, financial records, witnesses. He met her eyes. And we find Victor Hale. Make him talk. You think he'll just tell you the truth? I think he'll do whatever it takes to save his own skin. And right now, Carelli's probably considering Victor a liability. Loose end, someone who knows too much. Raphael set down his glass. We offer Victor a deal, protection in exchange for testimony. He rolls on Carelli and Morrison. We make sure he lives long enough to do it. That's assuming we can find him. Tony already has. Victor's been laying low at a casino in Atlantic City. Carelli's territory, but public enough that we can approach him. Raphael checked his watch. We leave in 4 hours. Get some sleep. You want me to come? Victor saw you that night. Your presence makes the threat real. Reminds him there's a witness who can bury him. Raphael moved toward the door. Besides, I meant what I said. You want in? You're in. All the way. Lena should have been terrified, should have argued, should have done anything except nod and agree to walk into enemy territory to confront the man who'd murdered someone in front of her. But she was done running, done hiding, done being invisible. 4 hours, she said. I'll be ready. Raphael paused in the doorway, looked back at her. Lena, when we get there, things might get ugly. Victor's dangerous, so is the territory. If I tell you to run, you run. No questions. And if you're in trouble, then you run faster. He almost smiled. I've survived a lot of things. I can survive Victor Hale, but I can't do this if I'm worried about you getting hurt. Then don't worry. I can take care of myself. I'm starting to believe that. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Lena sat in the study, whiskey untouched, staring at the wall. Somewhere in the house, Raphael was planning an operation that could either end this nightmare or get them both killed, and she'd just agreed to be part of it. 3 days ago, she'd been a housemaid, invisible. Safe in her anonymity, now she was going to war. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You can still walk away. Raphael will survive. You won't. Carelli. Had to be. Lena deleted the message without responding. Let him wonder. Let him worry. She finished the whiskey, felt it burn down her throat, and went to find something appropriate to wear to a confrontation. Something that said she wasn't afraid, even if she was terrified, because fear was just another thing she was done letting control her life. Atlantic City at 4 a.m. looked like a neon graveyard. The casinos still blazed with light, but the streets between them were empty except for the desperate and the predatory. Raphael's convoy, 3 black SUVs with enough firepower to start a small war, rolled through the downtown district like sharks through dark water. Lena sat beside Raphael in the middle vehicle, wearing jeans and a leather jacket that Maria had somehow procured in the middle of the night. Practical, dark, nothing that would stand out or restrict movement. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail. No jewelry, no distractions. The Majestic Casino, Raphael said, nodding toward a building that had probably been impressive 30 years ago. Now it just looked tired. Victor's been here for 2 days. Suite on the 8th floor, registered under a fake name. Carelli's keeping him close but visible. Insurance policy. Against what? Against me doing exactly what I'm about to do. Raphael checked the magazine in his pistol with practiced ease, then holstered it beneath his jacket. Victor's protected inside. Carelli's men, cameras, security. But he has to leave eventually, and when he does, we'll be waiting. Marcus's voice crackled through the radio. North exit covered. South exit covered. If he runs, we'll have him. Good. Everyone hold position. Raphael turned to Lena. Last chance to stay in the car. Not happening. Stubborn. You're just now noticing? Lena's attempt at humor fell flat in the pre-dawn darkness. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together to hide it. Raphael noticed anyway. His hand covered hers briefly. Fear keeps you alive. Channel it. Use it. The moment you stop being afraid is the moment you make mistakes. Speaking from experience? Always. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Tony, we're in position. What's Victor's status? A pause. Still in the suite? Any movement? Another pause, longer this time. Raphael's expression darkened. How many? Fuck. All right, we're going up. He ended the call, turned to Marcus. Change of plans. Carelli just sent a cleanup crew to Victor's room. 4 men. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they get there. Cleanup as in, Lena started. As in Vincent's decided Victor knows too much and needs to be permanently silenced. Raphael was already moving, exiting the vehicle. We need him alive. Move! They entered through a service entrance that Marcus somehow had keys for. The interior of the Majestic was all faded glamour, carpet that had seen better decades, slot machines that wheezed and blinked, staff who looked like they'd given up on life somewhere around 1987. Raphael moved through it like he owned the place. Maybe he did. In this world, Lena was learning, ownership was fluid and everyone had a price. The elevator climbed with agonizing slowness. 8 floors felt like 80. Marcus and 2 other men Lena didn't know flanked them, weapons concealed but ready. Professional, calm. This was just another Tuesday for them. The doors opened onto a hallway that smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Room 847 was third from the left. Raphael held up a hand. Everyone stopped. He pressed his ear to the door, listening. Voices inside, arguing, then a crash. Go! Raphael stepped back as Marcus kicked the door. It splintered inward, and they poured into the suite like a tactical flood. The scene inside was chaos. Victor Hale was on the floor, bleeding from a cut above his eye, scrambling backward. 3 men stood over him, Carelli's cleanup crew, minus one who was probably watching the hall. They turned at the intrusion, hands moving toward weapons. Raphael's gun was already out. Don't. The 3 men froze. Quick calculations happening behind their eyes. 3 of them, 4 of Raphael's team, everyone armed, too close for anyone to walk away clean if this went hot. Raphael Virelli, one of them said. This doesn't concern you. Everything in this city concerns me, especially when Vincent's crew is executing people in my territory. Your territory? Since when? Raphael smiled. It was a terrible smile. Since about 30 seconds ago. Victor, get up. You're coming with me. Victor stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You've got to be fucking kidding. You think Carelli's just going to let you walk out of here with me? Vincent sent these men to kill you. I'm offering you a chance to live. Raphael's eyes never left the three enforcers. Clock's ticking. Choose. One of Carelli's men reached for his phone. Marcus shot him in the hand. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The man screamed, dropped the phone, clutched his bleeding hand. Anyone else want to make a call? Raphael asked mildly. The other two raised their hands slowly. Smart men who knew when they were outgunned. Victor, now! Victor hauled himself upright, still bleeding, still looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. His eyes found Lena standing in the doorway, and something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe. Or recognition of just how badly he'd miscalculated. You brought her, he said. She's the reason you're still breathing. Now move. They backed out of the room, Marcus and his team keeping weapons trained on Carelli's men. Victor stumbled between them, one hand pressed to his bleeding forehead. Down the hall, into the stairwell. Elevators were death traps in situations like this. 8 flights down with Victor wheezing and cursing. Halfway down, Marcus's radio crackled. We've got movement in the lobby, multiple hostiles. Carelli sent backup. How many? At least 6. Maybe more. Raphael swore in Italian. North exit. We'll go through the kitchen. They hit the ground floor and pivoted left, away from the lobby. Through a door marked employees only into an industrial kitchen that reeked of grease and desperation. A line cook looked up from whatever he was cooking, saw the guns, and immediately decided this was a good time for a smoke break. The north exit emptied into an alley. One of the SUVs was already there, engine running. They piled in. Lena, Raphael, Victor, Marcus. The driver didn't wait for confirmation before peeling out. Behind them, men poured into the alley. Gunfire erupted. Bullets sparked off the pavement, shattered a side mirror. The driver didn't flinch, just took a corner at speed that had Lena gripping the door handle hard enough to hurt. Everyone alive? Raphael asked. A chorus of affirmatives. Victor was pressed against the opposite window, bleeding and pale, looking like he might vomit. Where are you taking me? He managed. Somewhere we can talk. Raphael's phone rang. He checked it, answered. Tony, tell me you've got good news. He listened, and his expression shifted from tense to something darker. When? How many casualties? More listening. Pull everyone back to the estate, full lockdown. No one in or out. He ended the call, looked at Marcus. Carelli just hit 3 of our operations, warehouses in the Port District. He's escalating. How bad? Marcus asked. 6 of our people dead, millions in product destroyed. Raphael's jaw was tight. He's making a point. This is the cost of protecting Victor. Then give me to him, Victor said quickly. This is insane. You're going to war over me? I'm going to war because Vincent thinks he can dictate terms to me. Raphael turned, and the look he gave Victor could have frozen blood. You're just the excuse. This has been coming for years. They drove for another 20 minutes, leaving Atlantic City behind for industrial wasteland, abandoned factories and empty lots. The SUV finally stopped at a warehouse that looked condemned but clearly wasn't. Men were already there, more of Raphael's security team, establishing a perimeter. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into something functional. Offices, a break room, what looked disturbingly like an interrogation space complete with a metal chair and industrial lighting. Victor saw it and tried to bolt. Marcus caught him, shoved him into the chair with efficiency born of practice. I want a lawyer, Victor said. Raphael laughed. This isn't that kind of conversation. He pulled up another chair, sat down facing Victor. Close, intimate, threatening. Here's how this works. You talk. You tell me everything about the night you killed Angela Carelli. And if I believe you, if your information is good, I'll keep you alive. Maybe even comfortable. And if I don't talk? Then I give you back to Vincent. Let him finish what he started. Raphael leaned forward. But here's what you need to understand, Victor. Vincent's going to kill you anyway. You're a loose end, a liability. The moment this war is over, whether he wins or I do, you're dead. Your only chance is to give me something I can use against him. Something big enough that keeping you alive serves a purpose." Victor's eyes darted around the room, looking for escape routes that didn't exist. "If I talk, Carelli will kill everyone I've ever known. Carelli's about to have bigger problems than your extended family. I'm going to burn his empire to the ground, and you're going to help me do it." Silence stretched. Lena could see Victor calculating, weighing options, trying to find an angle that didn't end with him dead. "There's a recording," Victor finally said. Raphael went very still. "What kind of recording?" "Security camera. The warehouse where Angela died. She'd installed it herself. Didn't trust the landlord. Didn't trust anyone, really." Victor's voice was hollow. "I didn't know about it until after. By the time I found out, someone else had the footage." "Who?" "Judge Morrison. He's the one who sent me to talk to Angela in the first place. Said she needed to understand the consequences of her actions. I was supposed to scare her, rough her up a little, but she fought back and things got—" He swallowed hard. "Morrison showed up 20 minutes later, had already pulled the security footage, said it was insurance, to make sure I stayed loyal." Raphael exchanged a look with Marcus. This was bigger than they'd thought. "Where's the footage now?" "Morrison keeps it in a safe, in his house, along with everything else he's using to control people." Victor met Raphael's eyes. Tax records, bribes, evidence of murders. Everything you'd need to take down half the power structure in this state. "And you know this how?" "Because Morrison got drunk one night and showed me. Wanted me to understand how many people he owned, how untouchable he was." Victor's laugh was bitter. "Arrogant bastard never considered that someday his insurance policy might become someone else's." Lena stepped forward, unable to stay silent any longer. "I was there that night, in the warehouse. I saw what you did to her." Victor's eyes found hers. For a moment, he looked almost human, almost regretful. "I know. I saw you running, thought about going after you, but—" He shrugged. "Morrison said you were nobody, a cleaning lady. Who'd believe you?" "Raphael believes me." "Yeah, I noticed." Victor turned back to Raphael. "So what's the play? You want Morrison safe, you'll have to break into his house. And that place is a fortress. Security system, armed guards, cameras everywhere. He's paranoid as hell. Good thing I'm very motivated." Raphael stood, pulled out his phone. "Tony, I need blueprints for Judge Richard Morrison's residence. Security systems, shift rotations, everything. And I need it yesterday." He paused. "Because we're going to rob a judge." The next 12 hours were a masterclass in criminal planning. Tony arrived with blueprints and security specs that he definitely shouldn't have been able to access. Raphael's team assembled in the warehouse conference room. Actual criminals planning an actual heist like this was a corporate strategy session. Lena sat in the corner watching them work. The ease of it disturbed her. This was their normal: breaking and entering, theft, violence, just another day at the office. "The safe's in his study," Tony explained, pointing to the blueprints. "Second floor, east wing, biometric lock plus a 12-digit code. State of the art." "Can you crack it?" Raphael asked. "Given enough time and the right equipment? Maybe. But we won't have time. Security does rounds every 20 minutes. The moment we're inside, we've got a 15-minute window before all hell breaks loose. So we don't crack it. We take the whole thing." Everyone turned to look at Raphael like he'd suggested they steal the moon. "The safe weighs 800 pounds, Marcus said carefully. "Even if we could move it, which we can't, the security system will trigger the moment it's disturbed. Then we trigger it intentionally, create chaos, make them think it's something else." Raphael was pacing now, mind working. Fire alarm, gas leak, something that forces evacuation. In the confusion, we get in, get the safe, get out. "That's insane," Tony said. "That's the job." Raphael looked around the room. "Anyone have a better idea?" Silence. Because, apparently, stealing an 800-pound safe from a judge's house was the best plan they had. "We'll need a truck," Marcus said, already calculating logistics. "Team of at least 6, equipment to move the safe, and a distraction big enough to pull all his security to one side of the property." "I can create a distraction," Victor offered. "Call in an anonymous tip. Say there's an intruder on the south lawn. His guys will swarm it." Raphael studied him. You want to help? I want to live. And the only way I live is if Morrison goes down. Victor's expression was bleak. So yeah, I'll help. They spent the rest of the day planning, rehearsing, going over contingencies. Lena watched Raphael transform into something else. Not the cold crime lord from the estate, but a tactician, a leader. Someone who'd survived in this world by being smarter, faster, more ruthless than everyone else. As evening approached, Maria appeared with a duffel bag full of equipment, night vision goggles, comms units, tools that Lena couldn't even identify. You're really doing this, Maria said to Raphael. It wasn't a question. We don't have a choice. Morrison's the keystone. Pull him, and Carelli's protection crumbles. And if it goes wrong? Then we improvise. Raphael checked his watch. 3 hours until midnight. That's when we move. Lena stood. I'm coming. Absolutely not. You need me. I need you alive and safe, which means staying here with security while we... Morrison doesn't know me. His security doesn't know me. I can walk up to that house and no one will give me a second look. Lena's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I can be your distraction. Ring the doorbell. Say my car broke down. Ask to use the phone. Give you extra time. No. Raphael's tone left no room for argument. It's too dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous, but I'm the one person who can approach that house without raising suspicion. She met his eyes. You said I was in this all the way. Let me be in it. The silence stretched. Everyone in the room was carefully not looking at them, suddenly fascinated by blueprints and equipment. Finally, Raphael exhaled. You ring the doorbell. You ask to use the phone. The moment you're inside, you call the number Marcus gives you. That triggers the alarm. Then you run. You don't wait. You don't look back. You run to the extraction point and you get in the vehicle. Understood? Understood. And if anything feels wrong, you abort. I don't care if we're 30 seconds from the safe. Your safety takes priority. There was something in his voice that made Lena's chest tighten, something that sounded almost like care. I'll be careful, she said. You'd better be. Raphael turned back to the team. All right, everyone knows their role. We execute at midnight. No communications once we're on site unless absolutely necessary. Victor, you make that call at 11:55. Marcus, you're on the safe. Tony, security systems. Everyone else, you're with me. Questions? No one had questions. They'd done this before. Maybe not exactly this, but close enough. The hours until midnight crawled past with agonizing slowness. Lena tried to eat but couldn't, tried to rest but her mind wouldn't stop racing. She kept thinking about the warehouse, about Angela Carelli, about what Morrison had done to protect his empire. Raphael found her in one of the offices, staring at the wall. Second thoughts? He asked. 1,000 thoughts, but I'm still going. He sat down beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. I've been thinking about what you said, about running, about being invisible. Yeah? I get it. The appeal of disappearing. Starting over somewhere no one knows you. No history, no baggage, just clean slate. He paused. I've thought about it myself sometimes, walking away from all this. The empire, the violence, the constant calculation of who to trust and who to bury. Why don't you? Because this is who I am. I didn't choose it. It was chosen for me the moment I was born into this family. But I've made it mine, built something different than what my father had. He looked at her. You, though, you chose this life for yourself. The running, the hiding, the invisibility. You could have gone to the police, could have testified, could have done a dozen things differently. And I'd be dead. Maybe. Or maybe you'd be free. Raphael's hand found hers. After tonight, if we survive, if we get Morrison's evidence and bring down Carelli, you'll have a choice. Real freedom. You can disappear again if you want. New city, new name. I'll make sure you have the resources. And if I don't want to disappear? The question hung between them. Raphael's thumb traced patterns on her palm. Then you don't, he said quietly. You stay. You build something here, something real, something that isn't running. With you? If you want. His eyes met hers, and for once there was no calculation in them, no strategy. just honesty. I know what I am, Lena. I know what I do. The blood on my hands, the bodies in my wake. I'm not asking you to love that. I'm not even asking you to accept it. But if you stay, you'll be protected. Always. No matter what. Lena's throat was tight. That's not a life. Being protected. Being kept. Then what do you want? I want to stop being afraid. I want to make my own choices. I want to be seen. She squeezed his hand. Not as a housemaid. Not as a witness. Not as your responsibility. Just seen. I see you. Raphael's voice was barely above a whisper. Since the moment you scrubbed that bathroom grout like your life depended on it, I saw someone who refused to give up, who kept fighting even when fighting meant making yourself invisible. That's not weakness, Lena. That's survival. And survival is the most valuable skill in my world. Before she could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. It's time. They drove in silence through streets that got progressively more expensive. Morrison's neighborhood was old money, estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates, houses that had histories and heritage. The kind of place where crimes happened quietly and were resolved with money instead of courts. Morrison's house sat on 5 acres of manicured lawn. Security lights, cameras, a gate that looked like it could stop a tank. But wealth had its blind spots. Rich people believed in their invulnerability. They hired security and assumed that was enough. Raphael's team had been studying those blind spots for hours. The vehicles stopped 2 blocks away. Marcus handed out equipment with military precision. Night vision, comms, tools. Lena got an earpiece and a phone with 1 number programmed in. You remember the plan? Raphael asked her. Ring the doorbell. Damsel in distress. Call the number when I'm inside. Run. Good. He hesitated, then pulled her close. Brief. Intense. Be smart. Be safe. Come back. Then he was gone, melting into the darkness with Marcus and the others, moving toward the house with the practiced silence of men who'd done this 1,000 times. Lena waited 30 seconds, then started walking. Her car, a rental that Tony had somehow procured, was parked conspicuously on the side of the road with the hood up. Classic breakdown scenario. She walked up to Morrison's gate, pressed the intercom button. Waited. Yes? A voice. Bored. Security who'd answered this call 100 times. Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you, but my car broke down and my phone's dead. Could I possibly use your phone to call a tow truck? She made her voice young, helpless, unthreatening. A pause. Camera somewhere was assessing her. Young woman. Alone. No obvious weapons. 1 moment. The gate buzzed open. Lena's heart hammered as she walked up the long driveway. The house loomed ahead, 3 stories of colonial architecture and money. Lights blazed in several windows. The front door opened. A security guard stood there, broad, professional, hand resting on his belt near a weapon. Phone's in the kitchen. Make it quick. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. She followed him inside. The interior was exactly what she expected. Antique furniture, oil paintings, a chandelier that probably cost more than most people's houses. The guard led her to a kitchen that belonged in a magazine spread. Phone's there? He pointed to a landline on the wall. I'll wait. Thanks. Lena picked up the phone, dialed the number Marcus had given her. It rang once, then disconnected. Somewhere in the house, alarms started screaming. The guard's hand went to his radio. What the hell? Lena bolted, through the kitchen back toward the front door. The guard shouted behind her but was already talking into his radio, coordinating with other security. She hit the front door to run, burst outside. The property was chaos, alarms blaring, lights blazing, security converging on the south side of the house where Victor's anonymous tip had placed an intruder. Lena ran for the gate, legs pumping, lungs burning. Behind her, someone shouted. She didn't look back. The gate was still open, barely. She squeezed through just as it started closing. A black SUV screeched to a stop beside her. Door flew open. Get in! She dove inside. The vehicle was moving before the door even closed. Lena looked back to see Morrison's security pouring out of the gate, but they were already too far away. Everyone okay? Marcus's voice crackled through the radio. Safes loaded. We're moving. Raphael's voice, calm, professional. Extraction point in 3 minutes. They rendezvoused at an abandoned parking garage 2 miles away. Raphael's team was already there, loading an enormous safe into a truck with equipment that looked military grade. Raphael himself was directing operations, covered in sweat but grinning. He saw Lana and crossed to her in 3 strides, pulled her into a hug that squeezed the air from her lungs. "You did good," he said into her hair. "Really good." "We got it?" "We got it." He pulled back, eyes bright with adrenaline and victory. Morrison's entire insurance policy, every piece of evidence, every secret, it's ours. Tony appeared with a crowbar and a plasma cutter. "Ready when you are, boss. Do it." They gathered around as Tony went to work on the safe. It took 20 minutes of cutting and prying, but finally the door swung open. Inside was everything Victor had promised, and more. Files, hard drives, USB drives, photographs, video cassettes that had probably been transferred to digital but kept for nostalgia or paranoia, documents in neat folders labeled with names Lena recognized from the news. Raphael pulled out a file at random, opened it. His expression went cold. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "Senator Williams, taking bribes from Carelli to block gaming legislation." He pulled another. "Police Commissioner Brennan, on Morrison's payroll for 16 years, evidence of planted evidence, suppressed investigations." Another file. "The mayor, the district attorney, 3 judges." He looked up and his smile was terrible. "We've got them all." Tony held up a video cassette. "This one's labeled Carelli, Angela Warehouse." Raphael took it carefully, like it might explode. "That's our smoking gun." "Victor?" Victor stepped forward from where he'd been lurking at the edge of the group. "That's it. That's the recording of me, of what happened." Which means Morrison knew about Angela's murder, had evidence, and buried it. Raphael's voice was ice. "He's going down. They're all going down." "What's the play?" Marcus asked. Raphael pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. "We go nuclear. Release everything. Every file, every video, every piece of evidence. We burn Morrison's empire and Carelli's protection in one move." "That'll start a war," Tony said. "War's already started. We're just changing the battlefield." Raphael looked around at his team. "Anyone who wants out, now's the time. What we're about to do will make enemies of some very powerful people." No one moved. These were men who'd chosen Raphael years ago, who'd bet their lives on his leadership. "All right then." Raphael's grin was predatory. "Let's burn it all down." The war room Tony set up in the warehouse looked like something from a spy thriller. Computers lined one wall, multiple monitors displaying news feeds, police scanners, and what Lena assumed were illegal surveillance feeds. Raphael stood at the center of it all, orchestrating chaos with the precision of a conductor. "First drop goes to the Times," he said, pointing at one of Tony's assistants. "Everything on Senator Williams. Bribes, kickbacks, the photos from that fundraiser where he's accepting a briefcase full of cash. Make sure they verify the source documents before they publish." "Second drop to Channel 7, he continued, moving to the next monitor. "Police Commissioner Brennan, focus on the planted evidence cases. The families of those convicted men deserve to know their loved ones were framed." Tony was uploading files with mechanical efficiency, routing them through servers in countries that didn't cooperate with American law enforcement. What about Morrison himself? Save him for last. Let him watch his empire collapse piece by piece. Let him know it's coming. Raphael's smile was cruel. Fear is more effective than the actual blow sometimes. Lena watched from the corner, trying to process the magnitude of what they were unleashing. Careers would end. Families would be destroyed. People would go to prison. And all of it stemmed from one night 3 years ago when she'd witnessed a murder and run instead of reporting it. "You okay?" Marcus appeared beside her, offering coffee she didn't remember asking for. "I'm not sure. This is..." She gestured at the room. "It's a lot. It's justice. Maybe not the kind you get in courtrooms, but justice all the same." Marcus took a sip of his own coffee. "These people, Williams, Brennan, Morrison, they've been untouchable for years, destroying lives, taking bribes, letting criminals walk free. Someone needed to stop them. And that someone is Raphael? That someone is all of us, you included. Marcus gave her a long look. You think you're just a witness, just someone who saw something they shouldn't have. But you're the reason this is happening. Your testimony puts Victor at that warehouse. Your presence validates everything on these files. Without you, this is just another anonymous leak. With you, it's credible. I haven't testified to anything. Not yet. But you will. Marcus nodded toward Raphael. When the DA starts making arrests, and they will, the evidence is too damning to ignore. You'll be called. And when you tell that courtroom what you saw, it'll be the final nail in Carelli's coffin. The thought terrified her, standing in front of a courtroom, facing Victor again, facing Carelli, making herself visible in the most permanent, dangerous way possible. But Marcus was right. This only worked if she stopped hiding. Raphael's phone rang. He checked the screen and his expression shifted to something harder. It's Morrison, he answered on speaker. Judge, I was wondering when you'd call. Morrison's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. You have something that belongs to me. I have a lot of things that belong to you, past tense. They're mine now. This is theft, breaking and entering. I'll have you arrested. Raphael laughed. By who, Commissioner Brennan? He's going to be a little busy dealing with the corruption charges that are about to drop. Or maybe Senator Williams can help. Oh, wait. He's probably already being contacted by the Times about those bribery allegations. Silence on the line. Then, what do you want? I want you to understand something, Richard. You've spent years building an empire on blackmail and corruption. You've destroyed lives, buried evidence, perverted justice, and you thought that safe made you untouchable. Raphael's voice dropped to something cold and final. But empires built on secrets fall the moment those secrets become public, and yours is about to fall very, very hard. Carelli will kill you for this. Carelli's got bigger problems, like explaining why he buried evidence of his own niece's murder, why he's been protecting her killer for 3 years, why he's been paying you to make it all disappear. Raphael paused. That video from the warehouse, the one showing Victor Hale beating Angela Carelli to death, that's dropping tomorrow morning, along with evidence that you knew about it, that you suppressed it, that you made yourself an accessory after the fact. Morrison's breathing was ragged. You're destroying the entire power structure of this city. I'm cleaning house. There's a difference. Raphael ended the call, tossed the phone onto the table. Tony, how long until the first story breaks? Times is running Senator Williams in their morning edition. Should hit the website in about 3 hours. Perfect. That gives us time to prepare for Carelli's response. Raphael turned to Marcus. Double security at the estate. I want eyes on every approach. The moment Carelli makes a move, I want to know about it. Already done. We've got 20 men on the perimeter, another 10 inside. Surveillance on all his known locations. If he so much as orders a pizza, we'll know. Raphael nodded, satisfied. Then his eyes found Lena. You should get some rest. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. I'm not tired. You're exhausted. I can see it. He crossed to her, and his voice softened fractionally. This is happening with or without you in this room. Go. Sleep. I'll wake you if anything changes. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her like gravity. The adrenaline from the heist had worn off, leaving nothing but bone-deep weariness. Okay, but you wake me if Carelli makes a move. I promise. Marcus drove her back to the estate in one of the armored SUVs. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed obscene given what they'd just done. Lena watched the city wake up, unaware that by lunchtime, everything would be different. The guest room felt too quiet after the chaos of the warehouse. Lena showered, washing away sweat and fear and the lingering smell of Morrison's house. When she finally lay down, she expected sleep to be impossible. Instead, she was unconscious within minutes. She woke to her phone ringing. The clock said 2 in the afternoon. She'd slept for 7 hours. Hello? Turn on the news. Raphael's voice, tight with something that might have been satisfaction or might have been concern. Any channel. Lena fumbled for the TV remote. The screen blazed to life, showing a news anchor with the kind of serious expression reserved for natural disasters and presidential assassinations. Unprecedented scandal rocking the state this afternoon. Senator Thomas Williams has been arrested on multiple corruption charges following publication of damning evidence by the Times. Documents show a pattern of bribery and kickbacks spanning nearly a decade. She changed channels. Another anchor, same story. Police Commissioner Daniel Brennan has resigned effective immediately after allegations surfaced that he was involved in planting evidence in at least 17 criminal cases. The families of those convicted. Another channel. Judge Richard Morrison's home was burglarized last night, though sources say what was taken wasn't money or jewelry, but files. Sensitive files that are now being leaked to media outlets across the city. Morrison has refused to comment, but legal experts say he could face charges ranging from obstruction of justice to... Lena muted the TV, called Raphael back. It's everywhere. It's just getting started. The DA's office is scrambling. They can't ignore evidence this solid, this public. Arrests are coming, maybe as soon as tonight. He paused. How are you holding up? I don't know. This is bigger than I thought it would be. It always is. Corruption is like mold. You find it in one place, you start looking, suddenly it's everywhere. Raphael's voice shifted. Listen, I need you to stay at the estate today. Don't go out. Don't talk to anyone. Carelli is going to realize very soon that the one person who can testify to all of this, who can put Victor at that warehouse, who can validate the video evidence, is you. You think he'll come for me? I know he will. It's his only play left. If you disappear, if you're discredited or dead, the whole case falls apart. Victor's testimony becomes hearsay. The video becomes questionable. Everything we've built crumbles. Lena's hands were shaking. So what do I do? You stay alive. You stay protected. And when the DA calls, and they will call, you tell them everything. Every detail from that night. You bury Victor and Morrison and Carelli so deep they never see daylight again. Okay. I'm serious, Lena. Do not leave the estate. Do not answer the door. Do not trust anyone who isn't Marcus or me. Carelli's desperate, and desperate men do desperate things. I understand. Good. I'll be back tonight. We're coordinating with some contacts in the DA's office, making sure they have everything they need to move fast. He hesitated. And Lena, thank you for all of this, for being brave enough to stop running. The line went dead before she could respond. The afternoon crawled past with agonizing slowness. Lena tried to read, couldn't focus. Tried to eat, couldn't stomach it. The TV stayed on, muted, cycling through news coverage that got more frantic with each passing hour. Senator Williams was denying everything from his lawyer's office. Commissioner Brennan had been taken into custody for questioning. Judge Morrison had disappeared entirely. His house empty, his car gone, no one knowing where he'd fled. At 4 p.m., the warehouse video dropped. Lena watched it happen in real time. A news anchor's expression shifting from professional concern to genuine horror as they realized what they were about to show. A warning for sensitive content. Then the footage, grainy and time-stamped, showing Victor Hale and another man entering the warehouse, showing Angela Carelli pleading, showing the violence that followed. The networks cut away before the worst of it, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Within an hour, Victor Hale's name was trending nationwide. By 6 p.m., the DA had issued a warrant for his arrest. By 7, they'd issued one for Vincent Carelli as well. Conspiracy to obstruct justice, accessory after the fact, tampering with evidence. Carelli's empire was crumbling in real time. Lena's phone rang at 8. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Cross, this is Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Chen. I need to speak with you about an ongoing investigation. It was starting. I'm listening. We've received evidence regarding a homicide that occurred 3 years ago in Minneapolis. Angela Carelli. According to documents that were anonymously provided to our office, you were a witness to that crime. I was. I need you to come in, give a formal statement. Your testimony is critical to building a case against Victor Hale and Vincent Carelli. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We'll provide protection, of course, transportation, whatever you need. Chen's voice was professional, but not unkind. I understand this is difficult, Ms. Cross, but justice for Angela Carelli depends on people like you being willing to speak up. I'll be there. Thank you. An officer will pick you up at 8:30. Don't speak to anyone else about this before your statement. And Ms. Cross? Be careful. The people you're testifying against are dangerous. No kidding. Lena ended the call and immediately dialed Raphael. He answered on the first ring. The DA just called. They want me to come in tomorrow morning. I know, Chen called me 10 minutes ago. Wanted to make sure I'd cooperate with getting you there safely. Raphael's voice was tight. This is it, Lena. Once you give that statement, there's no going back. You'll be on record, public. Every defense attorney in the city will know your name. I know. And you're still willing to do it? I have to. Angela Carelli deserves justice. All those people Morrison destroyed deserve justice. And I'm the only one who can give it to them. Raphael was quiet for a moment. I'm proud of you, you know that? The words hit harder than they should have. Thank you. I'll be there tomorrow, at the DA's office. You won't see me, but I'll be close. If anything goes wrong, anything, Marcus will be right outside. You'll be protected. Raphael? Yeah? When this is over, when Carelli and Morrison are in prison and the case is closed, what happens to us? The question hung in the air. She could hear him breathing, thinking, calculating. I guess that depends on what you want, he finally said. You could disappear. New identity, new city, enough money to never worry again. Clean break from all of this. Is that what you want? No. The word was immediate, certain. But what I want doesn't matter if it's not what's best for you. You've spent 3 years running from your past. Maybe you need to keep running. From me, from this world, from everything. Or maybe I'm tired of running. Lena's voice was steady despite her racing heart. Maybe I want to stay. Build something real. With someone who sees me as more than a liability or a witness or a responsibility. Lena, you asked me what I want. That's what I want. To be seen, to be chosen, to stop hiding. She paused. Can you give me that? Silence stretched. Then Raphael's voice, rough with emotion. I can try. If you're willing to take a chance on someone with as much blood on his hands as I have. Everyone's hands are dirty. Some people are just better at hiding it. Raphael laughed, and it sounded almost genuine. Tomorrow, after you give your statement, after this is all in motion and there's no stopping it, we'll talk, really talk, about what comes next. Okay, get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Raphael? Yeah? Thank you for protecting me, for believing me, for making me brave enough to stop running. You've always been brave, Lena. You just needed a reason to believe it. The line went dead. Lena sat in the quiet guest room surrounded by expensive furniture and bulletproof windows and felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, probably always would be, but it had company now. Hope, determination, the strange, fragile possibility of a future that wasn't defined by hiding. Sleep came easier than expected, dreamless, deep. When she woke at 7 a.m., sunlight was streaming through the windows and Maria was knocking on the door with coffee and a suit that probably cost more than Lena's first car. For your statement, Maria explained, laying it out on the bed. Navy blue, professional, credible. You want the jury, if this ever goes to trial, to remember you as put together, confident, someone they can believe. There's going to be a trial? With evidence this solid? Absolutely. Carelli's lawyers will fight, but they can't fight facts. Morrison might try to cut a deal, but the DA is not in a generous mood. Maria poured coffee with steady hands. You're about to become very famous, Lena, the witness who brought down a corruption empire. That comes with attention, scrutiny, danger. I know. Do you? Really? Maria's expression was serious. Because once you walk into that DA's office and give your statement on record, your face will be on every news outlet by tonight. People will dig into your past, find your old jobs, old cities, old identities. Everything you've been running from becomes public. Lena's hands shook slightly as she accepted the coffee. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. You could refuse to testify, disappear again. Raphael would help you. He'd understand. Would he? Maria smiled slightly. No, probably not. He's invested now. In you. In this. She moved toward the door. But the offer stands. Right up until you walk into that building, you can change your mind. No judgment. She left. Lena, dressed in the navy suit, pulled her hair back in a neat bun, applied minimal makeup. The woman in the mirror looked professional, competent. Nothing like the terrified cleaning lady who'd witnessed a murder 3 years ago. Marcus appeared at 8:30 exactly. Car's here. DA sent 2 officers as escorts. They're legitimate. I verified their credentials personally. You don't trust them? I don't trust anyone when it comes to your safety. Marcus handed her a small device that looked like a keychain. Panic button. You press it. Every security asset Raphael has will converge on your location within minutes. Keep it on you always. The drive to the DA's office was surreal. Police escort, armored vehicle, security protocols that belonged in a presidential motorcade. Lena watched the city slide past, wondering if this was the last morning she'd be anonymous. The DA's office was a concrete fortress downtown. Security swept them through metal detectors, searched bags, verified identities. Then they were in an elevator climbing to the 7th floor, and Lena's stomach was climbing with it. Ada Jennifer Chen was younger than Lena expected. Mid-30s, sharp suit, eyes that miss nothing. She met them in a conference room with a recording device already set up. Ms. Cross, thank you for coming. Chen shook her hand with a grip that was professional but warm. I know this isn't easy, but your testimony is the cornerstone of this case. Without you, we have evidence but no context. Documents but no story. I understand. Good. This will be recorded. Everything you say is on the record and can be used in court. Take your time. Be as detailed as possible. And if you need a break at any point, just ask. Chen settled into her chair, pressed record. Please state your full name for the record. Lena Marie Cross. And on the night of October 17th, 3 years ago, where were you? Lena took a breath. Let it out. Began to speak. The story poured out of her. The cleaning job at the warehouse. Working late. The voices. Hiding when she realized something was wrong. Watching through a gap in the storage units as Victor Hale and another man dragged Angela Carelli inside. The pleading. The violence. The terrible final sound of a skull hitting concrete. Chen asked questions, clarifying details, establishing timeline, making sure every piece of Lena's testimony matched the physical evidence, the video, the documents from Morrison's safe. 2 hours passed, then 3. Lena's voice was hoarse from talking, her hands shaking from reliving that night in excruciating detail. Finally, Chen stopped the recording. That's enough for now. You've given us everything we need to move forward with charges against Victor Hale for first-degree murder, against Vincent Carelli for conspiracy and obstruction, against Judge Morrison for corruption and accessory after the fact. When will the arrests happen? Some already have. Hale is in custody. Raphael Virelli turned him over this morning. Morrison was picked up an hour ago trying to flee to Mexico. Carelli is still at large, but we've got warrants out. It's only a matter of time. Chen stood, extended her hand again. You did good work today, Ms. Cross. You should be proud. I'm just glad it's over. It's not over yet. There will be pre-trial hearings, probably a grand jury, eventually a trial. You'll be called to testify again. Chen's expression was kind but firm. And defense attorneys will try to discredit you. Your history of moving cities, working under the table. They'll paint you as unreliable, unstable. You need to be prepared for that. I will be. Marcus was waiting outside the conference room. He read her expression, nodded. You did it. I did it. Raphael wants to see you. He's waiting downstairs. They took the elevator down to the parking garage. Raphael was leaning against one of the SUVs, scrolling through his phone, looking like he'd just come from a business meeting rather than orchestrating the largest corruption takedown in state history. He looked up when he heard them approach. His expression shifted, something softer, more genuine than his usual calculated control. How'd it go? It's done. I told them everything. Raphael studied her face. You okay? I think so. Chen said there will be more. Hearings, trials, defense attorneys trying to tear me apart. Let them try. Raphael's voice was steel. You told the truth. That's all that matters. Everything else is just noise. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll give you two a minute. He moved to a discreet distance, scanning the garage with professional paranoia. Raphael turned back to Lena. I meant what I said last night, about what comes next, about giving you a choice. I know. So what do you choose? Disappear? Stay? Something in between? Lena looked at him, really looked at him. The crime lord who'd protected her when he didn't have to, who'd risked war for a housemaid, who'd seen her as more than invisible. I choose to stop running, she said. I choose to build something real, with you, if that's still on the table. Raphael's hand found hers. It's on the table, but you need to understand what you're choosing. My world, my enemies, my violence. It doesn't just disappear because Morrison's in custody. I know, but I'd rather face it with someone who sees me than face it alone. Then stay. Raphael pulled her closer, and his voice dropped to something raw and honest. Stay, and I'll protect you. Not because you're a responsibility or a witness or a liability, but because you're mine, and I protect what's mine. Even if Carelli comes for me? Especially if Carelli comes for me. Raphael's smile was predatory. Let him try. He'll learn what happens when you threaten something Raphael Virelli has claimed. Marcus's radio crackled. He listened, his expression changing. Sir, we've got movement. Carelli's been spotted 3 blocks from here, multiple vehicles, armed men. Raphael's demeanor shifted instantly from lover to tactician. How many? At least a dozen, maybe more. They're converging on this location. He knows she's here. He's making a last-ditch play. Raphael pulled his weapon, checked the magazine. Get her out of here. Back route. Use the secondary extraction protocol. What about you? Lena asked, even though she knew the answer. I'm going to make sure Carelli understands that coming after you was the last mistake he'll ever make. Raphael's eyes were cold. Final. Go with Marcus. Now. Raphael, now, Lena. This is what I do. Let me do it. Marcus had her arm, was pulling her toward a different exit. Behind them, Raphael was already on his phone, calling in reinforcements, orchestrating a defense against an attack that was seconds away. They made it to a different vehicle just as the shooting started. Gunfire erupted behind them like thunder in a concrete canyon. Marcus shoved Lena into the back seat of an unmarked sedan, slammed the door, and was behind the wheel before she could even process what was happening. The engine roared to life, and they were moving, tires screaming against the garage floor. Get down! Marcus barked. Lena dropped below the window line just as bullets sparked off the vehicle's reinforced frame. The sound was deafening. Metal on metal, glass shattering, Marcus cursing as he wrenched the wheel hard to avoid something she couldn't see. They burst out of the garage into blinding sunlight. Marcus didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, just gunned it through midday traffic like they were in an action movie. Cars honked. People scattered. Lena's stomach lurched with every sharp turn. Is Raphael... She started. Raphael can handle himself. My job is keeping you alive. Oh, Marcus's eyes were locked on the rearview mirror. We've got a tail. 2 vehicles. Maybe 3. Lena risked a glance back. Black SUVs weaving through traffic, closing the distance. Carelli's men, coming for her with everything they had left. Where are we going? Safe house on the east side, reinforced, defendable. We hole up there until Raphael gives the all clear. Marcus took a corner so hard Lena was thrown against the door. Hold on! The next 10 minutes were a blur of speed and violence. Marcus drove like a man possessed, using every dirty trick in the book. Wrong way down one-way streets, through parking lots, cutting across a construction site that sent debris flying. The pursuing vehicles matched him move for move. Then one of them pulled alongside. Window rolled down, gun barrel emerging. Down! Now! Lena hit the floor as bullets punched through the passenger window. Ishin the ska. Safety glass exploded inward, showering her with fragments. Marcus returned fire one-handed while steering with the other, and Lena realized with sick clarity that this was his normal. This was just another day in Raphael Virelli's world. The pursuing SUV swerved, clipped a parked car, spun out, one down, but 2 more were still coming. Marcus's phone rang through the car's speakers. Raphael's voice filled the sedan, tight with controlled fury. Status? Two vehicles still in pursuit, taking heavy fire. Heading to Safe House Alpha. Negative. Carelli's people know about Alpha. Route to the harbor warehouse. I'm sending backup to meet you there. The harbor's 20 minutes away. Then drive faster. Raphael's tone left no room for argument. And Marcus? Keep her alive. Whatever it takes. The line went dead. Marcus swore creatively in 3 languages and yanked the wheel toward the highway on-ramp. The harbor district was industrial wasteland, shipping containers and loading docks and warehouses that had seen better decades. Marcus navigated it with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every route, every alley, every potential ambush point. The warehouse Raphael had specified was at the end of a dead-end street, backed up against the water. Strategically terrible for escape, but perfect for a defensive stand. Only one way in meant only one way they could come at you. Marcus killed the engine behind the warehouse, grabbed a duffel bag from the trunk that Lena hadn't known was there, and hustled her inside. The interior was exactly what she expected, empty except for old shipping crates, broken pallets, and shadows. Upstairs, Marcus pointed to a metal staircase leading to what looked like an office. Defensible position, sight lines on all approaches. They climbed. The office had windows overlooking the warehouse floor and the street beyond. Marcus started pulling weapons from the duffel bag, pistols, ammunition, something that looked disturbingly like a grenade. "You know how to shoot?" he asked. "No." "Perfect time to learn." He handed her a pistol, showed her the safety, the trigger, the basic mechanics. "Point at what you want to stop. Pull the trigger. Don't close your eyes. Don't hesitate. Someone comes through that door who isn't Raphael or our people, you shoot them. Understood?" Lena's hands were shaking as she took the weapon. It was heavier than she expected, more real. "I don't know if I can—" "You can, because the alternative is dying, and you didn't survive 3 years of running just to die in a warehouse." Marcus moved to the window, scanning the approaches. "Backup's 5 minutes out. We just need to hold until then." 5 minutes. 300 seconds. It sounded simultaneously forever and not nearly long enough. The first SUV appeared 90 seconds later. It rolled to a stop at the warehouse entrance, and men poured out. Lena counted 6. Then another vehicle arrived. 4 more. Carelli had sent an army. "He's really committed to this," Marcus observed, checking his rifle. "Must be terrified of what you'll say in court." "Can we hold against that many?" "We're about to find out." Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, allowed himself a grim smile. "Raphael's 2 minutes out. We just need to buy time." The men below were organizing, spreading out, preparing to breach. Professional, military training, probably. These weren't street thugs. These were soldiers. The warehouse door exploded inward. Marcus opened fire immediately. Controlled bursts. Professional. 2 men went down before the others scattered for cover. Return fire came fast and heavy, bullets punching through the office walls, shattering the windows. Lena dropped behind a filing cabinet, heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. This was insane. She was a housemaid, a cleaning lady. She had no business being in a firefight. But here she was, gun in her hand, life on the line, no more running. "Movement on the east side," Marcus called out. "They're trying to flank us. Watch that window." Lena crawled to the indicated window, saw 2 men climbing a fire escape. They spotted her at the same moment she spotted them. Time seemed to slow. One of them was raising his weapon, aiming at her. She pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked her. The sound was deafening. Her aim was terrible. The bullet went wide, sparked off the metal railing, but it was enough to make the men duck, by a few seconds. Marcus was there instantly, rifle up, 2 quick shots. Both men fell. "Good," he said, like she'd just passed a test. "Stay sharp. More coming." The battle settled into a rhythm of controlled chaos. Marcus firing, reloading, calling out positions. Lena trying not to die, occasionally taking shots that mostly missed but kept attackers from advancing. The office was getting torn apart around them. Then she heard it. The most beautiful sound in the world. More gunfire. But from outside. Different angle. New shooters. Raphael's backup had arrived. Through the shattered windows, Lena saw Raphael's security team pouring into the street, catching Carelli's men in a crossfire. The warehouse floor became a war zone. The attackers who'd been so confident moments ago were suddenly pinned, outgunned, outmaneuvered. Marcus's phone rang again. Raphael's voice was tight with adrenaline. We've got them contained. Stay put. This is almost over. 3 minutes later, it was. The shooting stopped. Lena's ears were ringing in the sudden silence. Marcus was already moving, clearing the office, checking sightlines. Below, Raphael's team was securing prisoners, disarming the survivors of Carelli's assault. Clear, Marcus finally said. We're clear. Lena couldn't move, couldn't process. She was sitting against a wall with a gun in her lap and the sharp smell of cordite in her nose and the realization that she'd just been in an actual gunfight. Footsteps on the stairs, fast, purposeful. Raphael appeared in the doorway, and the relief that flooded through Lena was so intense it hurt. He was alive, intact, moving toward her with single-minded focus. You hurt? His hands were on her face, her shoulders, checking for injuries with clinical precision. I'm okay, scared, shaking, but okay. Good. That's good. Raphael pulled her into a hug that squeezed the air from her lungs. I'm sorry. I should have seen this coming. Should have had more security. Should have what? Rid Carelli's mind? Lena pulled back to look at him. You got us out. We're alive. That's what matters. Or Raphael's expression was dark. He came after you in broad daylight, at the DA's office. That's not desperation. That's declaration of war. So what do? We end it. Permanently. Raphael stood, helping Lena to her feet. Come on. There's someone downstairs you need to see. They descended to the warehouse floor. Raphael's team had the survivors on their knees, hands zip-tied behind their backs. Blood and shell casings littered the concrete. And standing in the center of it all, looking remarkably calm for a man whose empire was collapsing, was Vincent Carelli. He'd been captured, alive. Vincent, Raphael said pleasantly, thanks for coming. Saved me the trouble of hunting you down. Carelli's eyes were cold. This isn't over, Raphael. You think taking me ends this? I have lawyers, connections. I'll be out by tomorrow. I don't think so. See, we've got your assault on the DA's office on camera. Multiple witnesses. Attempted murder of a protected witness. The DA is going to throw every charge they can think of at you. Raphael circled him slowly. And then there's the evidence from Morrison's safe. Video of you discussing Angela's murder. Financial records showing you've been paying Morrison to bury it. Testimony from Victor Hale detailing exactly how you ordered him to silence your niece. Victor's a liar, a criminal. No one will believe him. Maybe not on his own, but corroborated by video evidence? By financial records? By testimony from the woman who witnessed it all? Raphael gestured to Lena. That's a different story. Carelli's eyes found Lena, assessed her, dismissed her. She's nobody, a cleaning lady with a history of running from her problems. My lawyers will tear her apart on the stand. Maybe they would have, a week ago. Raphael smiled. But now, she's the brave witness who brought down a corruption empire, who testified despite threats and violence, who survived multiple assassination attempts. She's not nobody anymore, Vincent. She's a hero, and heroes are very hard to discredit. Something shifted in Carelli's expression. For the first time, Lena saw fear. You can't prove any of this, he tried. I don't have to prove it. The DA will. With evidence you were stupid enough to let Morrison keep in a safe. With testimony from people terrified enough of going down with you that they'll say anything to cut a deal. Raphael leaned in close. Your empire is over, Vincent. Morrison's in custody. Your political protection is gone. Your soldiers are dead or arrested. You've got nothing left except a very long prison sentence. Carelli was silent for a long moment. Then, what do you want? I want you to confess. Everything. Angela's murder, the cover-up, the bribes, the corruption, all of it, on the record, to the DA. And if I don't? Raphael's smile was terrible. Then I let it be known in general population that you killed your own niece over pocket change, that you're a child killer. See how long you survived that reputation. It was a death sentence either way, and they all knew it. But one version let Carelli maintain some shred of dignity, some illusion of control. I want immunity, Carelli said. You're not getting immunity, but I can make sure you end up in a federal facility instead of state, white-collar prison instead of general population. You cooperate, you give the DA everything they need to close this case, and you might actually live to see parole. Carelli looked around at his captured men, at Raphael's soldiers, at the warehouse that had become his cage. He was a man calculating odds and finding them all bad. "Fine," he finally said. "I'll talk, but I want it in writing. Guarantees about where I'm housed. Protection from retaliation." "Done." Raphael pulled out his phone, made a call. "A DHN? Raphael Virelli. I have Vincent Carelli in custody. He's ready to confess to everything. Angela Carelli's murder, the conspiracy, all of it." He listened. "Warehouse District, Estock. Send units and bring your best court reporter. This is going to be a long statement." 20 minutes later, the warehouse was swarming with police and prosecutors. Ada Chen arrived with the kind of expression that lawyers get when their entire case just wrapped itself up with a bow. She set up a recording device right there in the warehouse and started taking Carelli's statement. Lena watched from a distance as Vincent Carelli dismantled his own empire, confessing to murders, naming names, detailing bribes and corruption that went back decades. It was comprehensive, brutal. Exactly what the DA needed to close not just Angela's case, but dozens of others. Raphael stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "It's really over," she said. "This part is. Trials will take months, appeals will take years. But the immediate danger, the people actively trying to kill you, that's done." Raphael turned to look at her. "You did this. You and your testimony. You broke them. We broke them together." "Yeah, together." Raphael's hand found hers. "So, about what comes next?" "I thought we were going to talk. After this was over." "This is over, so let's talk." Raphael guided her toward a quieter corner of the warehouse, away from the police and prosecutors and the organized chaos of Carelli's arrest. "You said you wanted to stay, build something real. Is that still true?" "Yes. Even knowing what my world looks like, what staying means." Lena looked around the warehouse, at the bullet holes and bloodstains, at the evidence of violence that was apparently just Tuesday in Raphael's life. At Marcus coordinating with police like this was routine. At Raphael himself, standing in the middle of a crime scene like he owned it. "I'm not naive," she said. "I know what this is, what you are. But I also know you protected me when you didn't have to. You believed me when no one else would have. You gave me a chance to stop running and start fighting." She squeezed his hand. "So yes, I want to stay, if you'll have me." Raphael pulled her closer, and his voice dropped to something raw and honest. "I've spent my entire life calculating. Every relationship is transactional. Every alliance is temporary. Every person in my world wants something from me. Power, money, protection, something." He paused. "But you just wanted to be seen, and somehow that's more dangerous than any threat Carelli could have made." "Dangerous how?" "Because it makes me want things I gave up on years ago. Normal things. Real things. A life that isn't just survival and strategy and violence." Raphael's eyes searched hers. "I can't promise you easy. I can't promise you safe. My enemies will always be looking for weaknesses, and you're the biggest weakness I've ever had. So what are you promising?" "That I'll protect you. Always. That I'll be honest with you, even when the truth is ugly. That I'll see you, really see you, for as long as you'll let me." He smiled slightly. "And that I'll try to be the man you seem to think I am instead of the monster everyone else sees." Lena reached up, touched his face. "You're both. The man and the monster, and I think I'm okay with that." "You're sure? Because once we do this, once you're officially part of my world, there's no going back to invisible. You'll be Lena Cross, the woman who brought down Carelli. The woman who's with Raphael Virelli. That comes with a target." "I've had a target on my back for 3 years. At least now I'll have someone watching it." Raphael laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. Then he kissed her. Right there in the warehouse, surrounded by police and prosecutors and evidence of the war they'd just won. It was brief, intense, a promise and a beginning. When they broke apart, Marcus was standing at a discreet distance, trying very hard to look like he hadn't been watching. "Sir, the DA wants to know if Ms. Cross is available for additional questioning." "Oh, tell them she'll be available tomorrow. Right now she's done." We're going home. The drive back to the estate was quiet. Lena was exhausted beyond words, running on nothing but adrenaline and the strange, fragile hope that maybe her life could actually be something other than running and hiding. The estate looked the same as always, imposing, beautiful, fortified. But walking through the doors felt different. This wasn't a safe house or a prison or temporary shelter. This was home, if she wanted it to be. Maria met them in the foyer, took one look at Lena, and immediately went into action. You need food, a shower, and sleep. In that order. Come on. I'm fine. You were in a firefight. You're not fine. Come. Maria's tone left no room for argument. Raphael nodded. Go. Rest. I've got calls to make, damage control to handle. We'll talk later. Lena let Maria lead her upstairs. The promised food appeared, soup and bread and tea that tasted like comfort. The shower washed away blood and concrete dust and fear. The bed was soft enough to feel like drowning. She was asleep in minutes. She woke to darkness and the sound of rain against the windows. The clock said 3 a.m. She'd slept for 12 hours. Her new phone was on the nightstand, screen glowing with notifications. News alerts mostly. Headlines about Carelli's arrest, Morrison's confession, the scope of the corruption that had been uncovered, and her name, Lena Cross, the witness, the hero. It felt surreal. A soft knock on the door. You awake? Raphael's voice. Lena pulled on a robe Maria had left. Come in. He entered quietly, still dressed despite the hour, looking exhausted but satisfied. Couldn't sleep? Slept too much. Now I'm wired. Lena moved to the window, watched rain streak the glass. Have you slept at all? Not yet. Too much to handle. The DA's moving forward with charges against everyone in Morrison's files. Senator Williams has already cut a deal. Commissioner Brennan is fighting, but he'll lose. Morrison's lawyers are trying to negotiate, but he's got nothing left to bargain with. Raphael joined her at the window. It's over. Really over. And Victor? Federal custody. He'll testify against Carelli at trial, then disappear into witness protection. We'll never see him again. Good. Lena had no desire to ever see Victor Hale again. The DA wants you to testify at Carelli's trial, Raphael continued, probably 6 months from now. They're building an airtight case, but your testimony about witnessing Angela's murder is crucial. I'll do it. I know you will. But after that, after the trial, you're free. No more looking over your shoulder. No more running. Carelli will be in prison for the rest of his life. His organization is dismantled. His protection is gone. You won. The word felt strange. Won. Like her life had been a competition instead of survival. What about you? She asked. Carelli's empire leaves a vacuum. Someone will try to fill it. Let them try. I'm not interested in expanding right now. I'm interested in consolidating, protecting what's mine, building something sustainable instead of just surviving. Raphael's hand found hers, and maybe building something personal for once instead of just professional. With me? If you'll have me. He turned her to face him. I know I'm not an easy man. I know my world is violent and complicated and dangerous, but I meant what I said in the warehouse. I want to try, to be someone worth staying for. Lena studied his face, the lines of exhaustion, the shadows under his eyes, the vulnerability he only let show in moments like this. You already are, she said. You just needed someone to see it. So you'll stay, really stay. Not just until the trial, not just until things settle down, but actually stay. Build a life here. What kind of life are we talking about? Raphael smiled slightly. Whatever kind you want. You could work with Maria. She's been talking about needing help managing my legitimate businesses. Or you could go back to school, finish that degree you dropped out of. Or you could do nothing, just exist without having to constantly look over your shoulder. And us? What are we? Partners. Equals. People who chose each other instead of having circumstances force us together. He paused. I'm not good at this. The relationship thing. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding attachments because attachments are weaknesses. But with you, I'm willing to try. If you're willing to be patient while I figure out how to be someone's something. Boyfriend sounds weird for you, Lena agreed. Absurd. I'm a criminal overlord. I don't have boyfriends. What do you have? Raphael considered. Partners? Companions? People I choose to protect and cherish, and occasionally drive completely insane. His arms wrapped around her. Is that enough? Lena leaned into him, felt his warmth and solidity and the steady beat of his heart. Yeah, that's enough. They stood there in the darkness, rain falling outside, the city sleeping, and Lena felt something shift inside her. The fear that had been her constant companion for 3 years was still there. Probably always would be. But it had company now. Hope, possibility. The strange and fragile belief that maybe she could actually have a life instead of just survival. I have a question, she said after a while. Ask. The night you brought me to the wedding, you said you chose me because I saw you as a man instead of a throne. Was that true? Raphael was quiet for a moment. Partly. I also chose you because I was testing something, a theory about perception and power. I wanted to see what would happen if I brought nobody to a room full of somebodies, how they'd react, what it would reveal. And what did it reveal? That power is fragile, that everyone in that room was so busy calculating angles and protecting positions that they didn't see the actual threat until it was too late. They dismissed you because you were nobody. And that dismissal is what gave us the opening to destroy them. He smiled. But that's not why I kept you around. I kept you around because somewhere between the wedding and the war, you stopped being nobody and started being someone I couldn't imagine losing. Lena's throat was tight. I'm not special. I'm just a girl who saw something she shouldn't have and got lucky that you decided to protect her. You're the girl who survived 3 years on the run, who testified despite death threats, who shot at armed men to buy time for backup, who chose to fight instead of hide when it would have been easier to disappear. Raphael's voice was fierce. You're a lot of things, Lena, but just isn't one of them. Smooth talker. I mean it. I know. She kissed him, soft, grateful, real. I know. The next 6 months passed in a blur of normalcy that felt surreal after everything that had come before. Lena gave her testimony at the grand jury, then at the preliminary hearings, then finally at Carelli's trial, where she faced down defense attorneys and told her story to a courtroom full of people. She was terrified, but she didn't run. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, Vincent Carelli was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, corruption. The judge sentenced him to life without parole. Lena watched from the gallery as they led him away in handcuffs. Watched the man who'd haunted her nightmares for 3 years disappear into the criminal justice system. It should have felt victorious, triumphant. Instead, it just felt like closing a chapter. Raphael was waiting outside the courtroom, leaning against a pillar like he owned the building. Maybe he did. In this city, ownership was complicated. How do you feel? He asked. Free, Lena said, and meant it. They walked out of the courthouse into a clear spring afternoon. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but Raphael's security kept them at a distance, and within minutes they were in the SUV and moving. Where to? Marcus asked from the driver's seat. Raphael looked at Lena. Where do you want to go? Home, she said. I want to go home. Home was the estate. Home was Raphael's world. Home was the life she'd chosen instead of running. They spent that evening on the terrace, drinking wine and watching the sun set over the city that had almost killed her, the city that had given her Raphael, the city that was hers now, for better or worse. I've been thinking, Raphael said after a while, about the future, about what comes next. Yeah? My legitimate businesses need management, real management, people who aren't criminals pretending to be businessmen. He turned to look at her. I want you to help me build that. Help me transform what my father built into something that might actually last. I don't know anything about business. You know about survival, about seeing opportunities that others miss, about reading people. Raphael smiled. Those are the skills that matter. The rest you can learn. You're serious. Completely. Maria's been training you for months. You're smart, capable, and you're not afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. That's more valuable than an MBA. Lena considered. working beside Raphael, building something legitimate out of an empire built on crime. It was ambitious, probably impossible. But then again, 6 months ago she'd been a housemaid hiding from her past. Impossible was starting to feel relative. "Okay," she said, "let's do it." "Yeah?" "Yeah, but I have conditions." Raphael raised an eyebrow. "Conditions?" "I don't want to be decoration. I don't want to be your girlfriend who gets a token job to keep her busy. If I'm doing this, I'm actually doing this. Real responsibility, real authority, real work. Done. And I want to finish my degree, part-time, online if I have to, but I want it. Also done. What else? I want us to be honest with each other about everything. Your world is violent and complicated, and I can't handle it if you're constantly hiding things from me to protect me." Raphael was quiet for a moment. "That one's harder. My instinct is always going to be to shield you from the worst of what I do. I know, but I need honesty more than I need protection. Can you give me that?" "I can try." Raphael's hand found hers. "Anything else?" "Just one more thing." Lena turned to face him fully. "I want you to promise me that if I ever need to leave, if this world becomes too much, you'll let me go. No guilt, no obligations, just freedom to choose." Something flickered in Raphael's eyes. Pain, maybe, or fear of loss. But he nodded. "If you ever want to leave, I won't stop you, but I will try like hell to give you reasons to stay. That's all I'm asking." They sealed the agreement with a kiss, there on the terrace, with the city lights beginning to sparkle in the growing darkness. Somewhere in that city, Morrison was in a federal prison. Carelli was beginning a life sentence. Victor Hale was living under an assumed name in a town he'd never chosen. The corruption empire had fallen. And Lana Cross, invisible, nobody, the girl who'd spent 3 years running, had become someone who chose to stay, who chose to fight, who chose to build instead of hide. 3 years later, on a warm October evening, Lena stood in what used to be a guest room and was now her office. The walls were lined with business plans and development proposals. The desk held contracts for legitimate enterprises, real estate, construction, hospitality. Raphael's empire, slowly transforming from criminal enterprise to legal corporation. It was slow work, complicated. Some days it felt impossible, but they were doing it, together. A knock on the door. Raphael appeared looking frustratingly good in a charcoal suit despite having been in meetings all day. "Still working?" he asked. "Always. This Turner proposal is driving me crazy. The numbers don't add up." "Let me see." Raphael crossed to the desk, scanned the documents with the rapid-fire analysis that made him so dangerous in negotiations. "Here. They're hiding costs in the subcontractor fees. Call them tomorrow. Tell them we're not paying for their creative accounting." "Will do." Lena saved the file, closed the laptop. "How was your day?" "Long. Boring. The legitimate business world is shockingly tedious compared to crime." Raphael pulled her to her feet. "But effective. We cleared another $2 million in legal profits this quarter. At this rate, we'll be fully legitimate in 5 years." "Only 5 years?" "I'm optimistic." He wrapped his arms around her. "How was yours?" "Productive. Maria and I finalized the community center proposal. Breaking ground next month. It's going to be good for the neighborhood." "Look at you, philanthropist." "Look at us, criminals turned community leaders." Lena laughed. "Your father would be horrified." "My father was a brutal bastard who died alone and hated. I'm okay with horrifying him." Raphael's expression softened. "I'm proud of you, what you've built, what you're building." "We're building, together." "Together, yeah." He paused. "I have something for you." Raphael pulled a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart did something complicated in her chest. "If that's what I think it is, it's not a ring. Relax." Raphael opened the box. Inside was a key, simple, brass, unassuming. "It's for the house." "I already have a key to the house." "Not this house. Our house. I bought the property on Riverside. The one you liked. The one with the garden and the view of the water. I had it renovated. It's done. And it's ours, if you want it." Lena stared at the key. Riverside was civilian territory. Normal people neighborhood. away from the estate and its guards and its constant reminder of Raphael's criminal past. You bought us a house. I bought us a future, a place that's just ours, not the family estate, not a fortress, just a home. Raphael's voice was careful, vulnerable. You said you wanted honesty, so here it is. I want a life with you, a real life, and that means a home that isn't built on my father's blood money. Raphael, you don't have to answer now. The house is there whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, no pressure. Lena took the key, felt its weight, its promise. When can we move in? Raphael's entire expression transformed. Whenever you want. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow works. They moved into the riverside house the following weekend. It was chaos, boxes everywhere, furniture being arranged and rearranged, Maria directing movers like a five-star general. But it was good chaos. The chaos of building something instead of running from something. That first night, they sat on the back porch overlooking the water, sharing wine and Chinese takeout because they hadn't unpacked the kitchen yet. The city glowed in the distance, but here it was quiet, peaceful, normal. No guards, Lena observed. No security checkpoints. No bulletproof windows. There's security. It's just subtle, Raphael pointed. Cameras there and there, sensors on the perimeter, panic button by the door. But, yeah, less fortress, more home. I like it. Good. Because I'm told normal people do things like have neighbors and host dinner parties and pretend they're not criminals. You're not a criminal anymore. You're a legitimate businessman with a shady past. Semantics. Raphael pulled her closer. But I'll take it. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the water, and Lena thought about the journey that had brought them here. The warehouse in Minneapolis, the wedding, the war with Carelli, the trial, the slow transformation from survival to living. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The old life, when everything was power and strategy and violence. Raphael considered. Sometimes. It was simpler in some ways, clear rules, clear enemies, win or die. He paused. But this? Building something that might last beyond me? Having someone to come home to? That's better. Harder, but better. Even when I'm driving you crazy with community center proposals? Especially then. Raphael kissed her temple. You've made me into someone I never thought I could be. Someone who builds instead of just takes. Someone who actually cares about legacy that isn't measured in bodies. You've made me into someone too. Someone who's not afraid anymore. Someone who fights. You were always a fighter. You just needed to believe it. The water lapped at the shore. The city hummed in the distance. And Lena Cross, no longer invisible, no longer running, no longer nobody, sat with the man who'd given her the chance to be someone. 3 years ago, she'd witnessed a murder and run. Today, she had a home, a purpose, a future, and someone who saw her not as a liability or a witness or a weakness, but as a partner, an equal. Someone worth protecting not because she needed it, but because she was chosen. The fear would always be there, lurking in the quiet moments. The memory of Victor's violence. The knowledge that in Raphael's world, danger was never more than a phone call away. But fear wasn't the dominant force anymore. Hope was. Possibility was. Love was. And that made all the difference. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For seeing me. For protecting me. For giving me a reason to stop running. Raphael pulled her into his arms, and his voice was rough with emotion. Thank you for staying, for believing I could be more than what I was, for building this with me. They held each other as the sun set over the water, two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from the wreckage. The city that had almost destroyed them became their home. The violence that had brought them together became the foundation of something real. And Lena Cross, who'd spent 3 years being invisible, finally felt seen. Not as a housemaid, not as a witness, not as anyone's responsibility or liability or possession, just as herself, chosen, protected, free. And that was everything she'd never known she needed.